Chapter 683. After he finished speaking, Jing Yunjiao and the other two were already stunned into a daze. This was the first time they had seen a girl seriously apologize after smashing someone, but she still looked like she was someone they couldn't afford to offend. Furthermore, judging from her words, her parents were probably extremely busy and probably had a bad temper. It was no wonder that celestial immortal Hua was so direct and arrogant. Dao Ji was so angry that she wanted to cry. At this moment, Hua Tianxian squatted down and said, "Why are you feeling wronged? I didn't want to hit you when I threw the things just now, but I saw you rolling your eyes at our building and mumbling something that I couldn't hear clearly. But if I'm wrong, you must be cursing. I can't stand vulgarities, so I threw them at you to get to know you. Don't be unhappy. These things add up to tens of thousands of yuan." Dao Ji glared at her. She was venting just now, but it couldn't be considered cursing. She stayed in the 6-person building next door, and she heard that the environment there wasn't very good. So when she passed by the 4-person building, she was a little upset and said a few words in a strange tone. At this moment, Jing Yunjiao only had the words prodigal girl in his mind. Other than that, there was no other way to describe Hua Tianxian. He really didn't know what kind of family background gave birth to such a twisted personality. She threw money at people without saying anything. She was really a weirdo. "I just said a few words. I didn't curse you at all. You're too unreasonable." "Oh, then it looks like you don't want these things. Forget it, I'll take them back." After Hua Tianxian finished speaking, she picked up the things on the ground and walked away with them. "You're not allowed to leave." Dao Ji was furious. Things worth tens of thousands of yuan? She just saw that there was a new unopened phone case. It was the latest model and was quite expensive. There were also clothes. Although she was jealous, she felt that her dignity had been insulted. "Why would I stay if I don't leave? Don't tell me you're going to stand here like a rock to admire your husband." Hua Tianxian rolled her eyes. "I'm dead tired right now. I don't have time to deal with you. Anyway, I've already said what I wanted to say. You can go to the school leaders or the police. I promise you that I'll cooperate. I'll compensate you if you need to and apologize if you need to. But you can't blame me for this." It made her think of those two-faced people. On the surface, they were fawning over others, but behind their backs, they were just like this girl just now. With a sour face, they said some words because of jealousy. After Hua Tianxian finished speaking, she walked away gracefully. Dao Ji had already stood up from the ground, stomping her feet in anger. Yarrow Baobao licked her lips. She had never seen such a scene before. One moment, she was looking at Jing Yunjiao, and the next moment, she was looking at Ren Xingyue. Ren Xingyue shrugged her shoulders. Apparently, she didn't want to get involved. Jing Yunjiao glanced at Dao Ji. His expression became serious as he prepared to return to the dormitory. However, Dao Ji said from behind, "Birds of a feather flock together. Jing Yunjiao, you can't even enter a university. On the train this morning, you bullied an old lady. You have no manners at all." Jing Yunjiao stopped in his tracks. His eyes were cold as he turned around. "What did you say? Say it again." Jing Yunjiao said coldly. Dao Ji was shocked. In a moment of anger, she spoke without thinking and felt uncomfortable. Jing Yunjiao seemed quite generous to be roommates with such a person. It was just that his temper was a little weird. But now, it was hard to stop halfway. "I said you have no manners. Just now on the train, you and your friends quarreled and angered the old lady so much that she fell ill." Dao Ji clenched her fists and bit the bullet. Chapter 684. Jing Yunjiao was so angry that she laughed. Yarrow Baobao and Ren Xingyue were a little surprised. They didn't believe the girl's words because Jing Yunjiao looked very quiet. She didn't seem like the kind of person who would be noisy and disturb the elderly. She walked over step by step. "Dao Ji, I thought you were just a little vain. I didn't expect you to be more than that. You can even do something like a thief calling out a thief. I really underestimated you," Jing Yunjiao said coldly. "I didn't." Dao Ji felt wronged. "It was clearly your roommate who smashed me. How can you be so righteous? She already said that she did it on purpose. If you didn't ask her to do it, how could she do it? Jing Yunjiao, you're just putting on an act. When she thought about how she lost so much face in front of Jing Yunjiao on the train, her heart felt like it was being burned. Moreover, they both came from Huaning County. Why was there such a big difference between them? When Jing Yunjiao went to Jingju, she had friends with her, but she was alone. Jing Yunjiao was the province's top scorer. Although her results were good, she didn't even have the right to show off in front of Jing Yunjiao. Also, when they arrived at Jingju, Jing Yunjiao and her friends went to a Western restaurant to eat. She didn't need to go to that place to know that the price of the food there would be very expensive. It shouldn't be something that students like them could afford. Jing Yunjiao was beautiful and had good results. She was better than her in every aspect, but she just had to make things difficult for her. She embarrassed her on the train, deliberately showed off to her when they went to eat, and now she even asked people to throw things at her. Dao Ji's eyes were slightly red. She stared at Jing Yunjiao, her eyes full of anger. Jing Yunjiao was speechless. Although she knew that this person always considered things from her side, she didn't expect that she could reverse black and white to this extent. I didn't ask others to throw things. It's up to you to believe it or not, Jing Yunjiao said coldly. She's your roommate. Of course, you can say whatever you want, Dao Ji said again. Student Dao, it's not easy to be as thick-skinned as you are. I have nothing to say to someone like you, but I advise you to be more careful with your words in the future. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rough with you. Jing Yunjiao glanced at her coldly. When Dao Ji heard this, his flames burned even brighter. Using violence against me? Jing Yunjiao, do you still want to hit me? If you have the ability, you. Bang, bang, bang. Before she could finish her words, she saw a few boxes falling from the air and smashing directly onto Dao Ji's head. Previously, there were things in those boxes, but now, they were just empty boxes of various sizes. They weren't heavy, but there were a lot of them, which made Dao Ji even more embarrassed. Are you done yet? I've already said that I don't like you. If you want to call the police, then hurry up. You're so noisy. On the balcony upstairs, Hu Tianxian directly shouted. The corner of Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched, then she pursed her lips and smiled. This Hu Tianxian's temper was interesting. Her actions were timely. After all, it was her first day at this school. She didn't want to break the rules and beat people up so early. However, looking at Dao Ji's appearance, she really deserved a beating. When Hu Tianxian smashed the boxes just now, she could have prevented Dao Ji from getting into trouble. However, she didn't want to be kind to a troublemaker. This Hu Tianxian didn't act recklessly. Everything in the boxes was taken out. Although it hit someone, it wasn't enough to hurt Dao Ji. At most, it would make her suffer a little. Chapter 685. When Jing Yunjiao saw this, he immediately turned around and left with Yarou Baobao and Ren Xingyue. Behind them, Dao Ji was flustered and exasperated. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she did not dare to call the police. She was not stupid. She had just arrived at this school. If she found the school leaders or the police on the first day, then her future days would not be easy. Besides, although this was a big deal in her opinion, it might not be in the eyes of others. Moreover, her injury was only a little bit of skin, and there was not even a trace of blood. How serious could it be in the eyes of others? Dao Ji walked back to the dormitory angrily. In her heart, she had already committed Jing Yunjiao and Hu Tianxian to memory. When Jing Yunjiao and the other two returned to the dormitory, they found that Hu Tianxian had already washed her face and put on a facial mask. She was lying on the bed leisurely and humming a little tune. Her slender and fair thighs were very eye-catching. You're back. There are facial masks on the table. Let's do them together. After you're done, let's go eat together. Hu Tianxian's words were completely commanding. She really had the temper of a spoiled brat. Hu Tianxian, why did you really hit her just now? Weren't you afraid that she would really make a scene? Yarou Baobao asked innocently with her curious eyes. Are you stupid? It would be a joke if she really made a scene over such a small conflict. Moreover, the first time I hit her, I was just trying to scare her. I didn't aim at all. The second time, I threw something light, so it's impossible for anything to happen. Some people have to be taught a lesson. Otherwise, she will think that you're easy to bully, Hu Tianxian said faintly. Yarrow Baobao's face showed a hint of submission. She eagerly picked up the facial mask on the table and put it on. Ren Xingyue continued to do as she pleased. Jing Yunjiao did not react either. After Hu Tianxian had finished tidying up her appearance, she came over and saw that Jing Yunjiao was holding a book on anatomy and reading it with great interest. She was even writing and drawing on it, but the words were all words that Hu Tianxian couldn't understand. Anatomy? Are you a pervert? This thing is so disgusting. Why are you looking at it? Hu Tianxian asked again. The patterns on it were very lifelike. Just one look at it and he would lose his appetite. I'm more interested in these things, Jing Yunjiao replied simply. Traditional medicine and Western medicine had their own strengths, so she would also study Western medicine when she was free. However, although she had a photographic memory now, she was not a top genius. There were some things that couldn't be learned by self-study. A lot of things needed to be learned by looking up some information or lessons on the internet. National healers had the spiritual jade, and they only needed to absorb it. In comparison, they had a huge advantage. I didn't expect you to have such a strong taste. But can you still eat after seeing this? I can't live without meat, Hu Tianxian added. He also felt a little strange. On the first day they met, she was quite satisfied with the other 3 people in the dormitory. At least they were not like the friends she met in the past. Some of them always looked at her with a snobbish attitude, fawning on her on the surface but harming her behind her back. However, she was more interested in Jing Yunjiao, who looked the coldest. Closing the book, Jing Yunjiao raised her head and smiled. When animals are killed, they should also be extremely frightened. Under fear, their bodies will definitely react. It's possible that some unpleasant things will appear in their blood or in their body tissues, such as some poisonous excrement. Moreover, it's not only humans who will fall sick, animals will also fall sick. So if you're a person who can't live without meat, I'll give you a word of advice: it's better to control yourself. Chapter 686. Hu Tianxian's face stiffened. You're purposely disgusting me. Actually, I didn't say anything. Everyone knows that eating too much meat isn't good. I'm just using a more interesting way to explain this fact. Jing Yunjiao was still smiling. It's not interesting. Hu Tianxian snorted. I didn't expect you to be so stubborn. I only said that you're a pervert. Forget it, I take back my words. Then I accept, Jing Yunjiao said directly. Hu Tianxian stared at her, then pursed her lips and smiled. The few of them stayed in the dormitory for a while before going out to eat together. Hu Tianxian changed into a white gauze dress, fluttering like a fairy, and stepped on high heels, walking like a pampered concubine. Yarrow Baobao, on the other hand, wore a red and pink suit. Although she was cute, this red color was too dazzling, and Ren Xingyue was like a taciturn gourd. As for Jing Yunjiao, she was wearing a simple white shirt and black casual shorts. She looked quite refreshing. Her figure was tall and well-proportioned. Even though she didn't dress up, her appearance was still the most eye-catching one. It was just that her temperament was cold. Even if she had a smile on her face, it still carried a sense of alienation. Her every movement had a somewhat frightening temperament. The 4 of them didn't look bad. As soon as they stepped out, the number of people who turned to look at them increased. Although Jing Yunjiao was good-looking, there weren't many people who dared to hit on her. Moreover, she was only a high school student in the past. Students all knew the rules. However, this university was different. The male students' gazes were much more direct than before. Pretty girl, are you new juniors? Hu Tianxian was stopped for the 5th time on the way from the dormitory to the school gate. Jing Yunjiao frowned. She was a little annoyed. Hu Tianxian's lips curled. You want my phone number, right? Here, business card. I'm going to eat now. Don't disturb me. The so-called business card was extremely simple. There was only a string of phone numbers on it. The senior was stunned for a moment. However, he immediately took the business card and said, You're going to eat? Why don't I treat you? There are a few places near the school that have especially good food. No need. Hu Tianxian's eyes were cold. I don't like to see walking hormones when I eat. Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched. Yarrow Baobao swallowed her saliva and was stunned. Ren Xingyue was also slightly surprised. The senior laughed dryly. Oh. Then I'll call you later. You guys have fun. After saying that, he hurriedly left. Hu Tianxian, you've sent out quite a few business cards. Is that really your phone number? Yarrow Baobao asked curiously. Damn it. Hu Tianxian's lips curled into a smile. She was beaming with joy. The surroundings were petrified. Why? Yarrow Baobao was stunned. Her attitude had always been very good when people hit on her. She thought that it was really her phone number. But even if it wasn't real, there was no need to give it to Auntie. Oh, you don't know. My mom has a younger mentality. She likes handsome guys. Hu Tianxian said as she walked. When she said that, the few of them were even more speechless. What about your dad? Yarrow Baobao was also a simple-minded person. She was curious and asked directly. Hu Tianxian didn't try to hide it and smiled. He's the same. He likes young girls. Both of them are carnivores. They each play their own game. A business marriage. You know what I mean. When she said that, Yarrow Baobao fell silent. Jing Yunzhao raised his eyebrows and a look of understanding flashed across his eyes. So that was the case. No wonder she had such an expression when she mentioned her parents. Chapter 687. However, this was a personal matter. As the saying goes, every family has its own difficulties. She didn't have any extra sympathy for her. Some people had the love and care of their parents, but they were ordinary people, such as Suchu. Some people were loyal, but had poor relationships with their parents, such as Xiao Haiqing. There weren't many people in this world who were perfect in terms of family, love, and friendship. Jing Yunzhao, you're really an interesting person. Shouldn't you sigh and tell me that my parents love me no matter what? You're the first person who didn't react to my situation, Hu Tianxian said again. Of the people she met, some were overflowing with sympathy, some were self-righteous, and some envied her for having 2 ATMs. Jing Yunzhao froze for a moment. You didn't jump out of a rock. What's so strange about parents? Jing Yunzhao said. After seeing a father like Xiao Daoan, Jing Yunzhao felt that other parents weren't bad. At the very least, Hu Tianxian's parents didn't need her to constantly be on guard against them and be full of hatred and scheming. Hu Tianxian giggled a few times. I don't know if I should say that you're clear-headed or cold. But I quite like you as a person. Let's get along well in the future. Hu Tianxian smiled brightly and brightly. Jing Yunzhao didn't know what to say, but nodded in agreement. The four of them found a relatively ordinary restaurant in front of the school gate, ordered a few dishes, and sat down. The restaurant was quite spacious. The owner was an auntie. Because there were new students today, the restaurant was full of friends. It was very lively. Many people from the same dormitory gathered together to cultivate relationships and familiarize themselves with each other. Through chatting, Jing Yunzhao learned the basic situation of the other 3 people. Hu Tianxian came from a well-to-do family. She was a native of the capital, and her parents had arranged a house for her. However, she was rebellious, so she refused and insisted on staying. Yarrow Baobao was an outsider. Her parents were very loving, and she had 3 older brothers. As the only girl in the family, she was doted on. Since young, she had never suffered the slightest bit of injustice. Similarly, she had never traveled far. Even when she went to school, she went to the school her parents invested in. She had always lived under their protection. The reason why she was allowed to grow up was because her grandmother could not stand it anymore. That was why she ordered her parents to send her out to study and gain experience. As for Ren Xingyue, just like Hu Tianxian, she was a local. She used to live in her uncle's house. Her uncle's family was well off, but after all, she was living under someone else's roof. Ren Xingyue followed her uncle's wishes and studied business management. She said that she wanted to help her uncle after she graduated. Based on her expression when she spoke, Jing Yunjiao felt that her uncle wanted her to repay his kindness and be loyal to him. In short, they were not ordinary people. When it was Jing Yunjiao's turn, the three of them stared at her curiously. They were obviously interested in her identity. I was born in a small county. I was an orphan. I used to have foster parents, but my foster mother passed away due to illness. My foster father was not very reliable, so they broke off their relationship, Jing Yunjiao said. That's it. Hu Tianxian raised her eyebrows. She was obviously not satisfied. She shook her head like a Taoist priest and said, I see that you don't look like an ordinary person, benefactor. Jing Yunjiao could not help but laugh. You'll understand more in the future if you have the chance. After all, it was the first time they had met. How could she say everything without thinking? The others were the same. They were just introducing their family backgrounds. She could not possibly say that she was the boss behind Yu Ling Wines and that she was worth billions. Chapter 688. Their faces were filled with disappointment. Clearly, they felt that Jing Yunjiao wasn't telling the truth. A person's temperament couldn't lie. Jing Yunjiao gave them a different feeling. She was cold and confident. Although it was only their first day together, they couldn't help but feel that she was somewhat mysterious. So she was born without a mother. No wonder she's so ill-mannered. Just then, a contemptuous voice came from behind. Jing Yunjiao paused and put down her chopsticks. Hu Tianxian and the others were also stunned. They tilted their heads and looked in the direction of the seats behind them. They only saw 6 girls sitting there. Because there was some noise when they came in, they didn't notice that Dao Ji was also in the restaurant. Jing Yunjiao truly felt that she and Dao Ji were enemies on a narrow road. They actually bumped into each other several times in one day. Hey, who were you talking about? Hu Tianxian raised her voice. Dao Ji's heart skipped a beat, but she snorted coldly. I wasn't talking about you. Dao Ji's classmates looked at each other. One of the girls grabbed Dao Ji's arm and said, What are you doing? Don't tell me, the girl you were talking about is there? Dao Ji's expression was a little uncomfortable. When she heard Jing Yunjiao say that she was an orphan, she subconsciously said that. However, after thinking about it, it wasn't a big deal. She didn't mention any names. What could Jing Yunjiao do to her? It's true that ugly people always cause trouble, Hu Tianxian said with a smile. Jing Yunjiao's eyes narrowed slightly. Forget it. Some people's whole family is ill-mannered. It doesn't matter how well-mannered their parents are. That's true. Hu Tianxian smiled. Jing Yunjiao, whose family are you calling ill-mannered? In front of her roommates, Dao Ji suddenly felt that she had lost face. She stood up and said angrily. Jing Yunjiao raised his eyes and glanced at her. Are you taking it personally? Jing Yunjiao, what's so great about you? Aren't you just an orphan? You eat and drink so much and stay in such an expensive dormitory. I'm afraid that money was given to you by someone else, right? You're being taken care of and you're still so self-righteous. How thick-skinned. Dao Ji said again. She had thought that Jing Yunjiao came from a good family. Who knew that he was an orphan? It was fine if she was an orphan, but she had already said that her adoptive mother had passed away and her adoptive father had cut ties with her. Since that was the case, no one should have given her money to spend, but she was still so extravagant. Money couldn't have fallen from the sky. Looking at her appearance, she didn't believe that she hadn't found a man. Jing Yunjiao's expression turned cold. He raised his hand and picked up the cup on the table. He turned his head and threw it directly at Dao Ji. It happened to hit her forehead. The cup fell to the ground with a bang sound. I warned you to be careful with your words, Jing Yunjiao said coldly. A red mark suddenly appeared on Dao Ji's forehead. Jing Yunjiao controlled his strength very well. It wouldn't take long for the red mark to disappear, but he couldn't forget the scene of the cup magnified in front of his eyes. Dao Ji's pupils constricted. Her whole body trembled in shock. The other students hurriedly leaned back. They didn't expect Jing Yunjiao to throw things at them without saying anything. After a few seconds, Dao Ji finally reacted. She rushed at Jing Yunjiao like a madwoman. Judging by her posture, she was going to pull Jing Yunjiao's hair. However, before her hand could touch Jing Yunjiao, her wrist was clamped down and pushed away. She staggered and fell at the corner of the table. "You're asking for trouble." Jing Yunjiao glanced at her, then turned his head disdainfully. He looked at Hua Tianxian and the others and said, "Stop looking. Let's eat." Yarrow Baobao gulped. She was stunned. "Jing Yunjiao, you're so strong." Although Yarrow Baobao felt that she was strong, her movements just now were too light. She just threw the person lightly, and the girl fell. Chapter 689. There were quite a lot of people in the restaurant, and Dao Ji's fall was very embarrassing. The table shook violently, and the cup on the table fell. The tea inside immediately flowed out, and coincidentally, it landed on Dao Ji's head. Feeling the surrounding gazes, Dao Ji didn't know what to do. A few of her roommates immediately went forward to help her up, and she stood up awkwardly. However, she was embarrassed. She had just used all her strength to rush over, but she was still thrown out by Jing Yunjiao. With that lesson in mind, she didn't dare to go forward. At this time, she didn't know whether to leave or stay. After standing for a while, she sat back down under the pull of her roommates. The thick glasses on her face were removed, and she couldn't stop sobbing. From time to time, people around them would turn their heads to look at Dao Ji, then look at Jing Yunjiao, and size him up. Dao Ji felt wronged, but Jing Yunjiao acted as if nothing had happened. He even added a dish and ate it very happily, as if there was no one around. However, the coldness in his eyes made people tremble with fear. At a glance, they knew that he wasn't a person to be trifled with. "Students, are you new students? It's just your first day here. Isn't it better to be harmonious? After all, just now, you were a little too ruthless." After a while, someone spoke up. Nearly 20 minutes had passed, and the tears didn't stop. Jing Yunjiao turned his head to look at the person who spoke. It was a tall guy who looked sunny and righteous. "Ruthless? That's because you haven't seen anything more ruthless," Jing Yunjiao said softly. After she finished speaking, she looked at the 3 people beside her who also didn't have much of an appetite and said, "I'm sorry, I made you guys lose your appetite for a meal. How about this? Next time let's find a quiet place, I'll treat." Hua Tianxian put down the cup in her hand and leaned back. "Okay, but I'm not a polite person. I won't save money for you." The other 2 people had a feeling that they wanted to leave immediately. During the meal, they were stared at non-stop, and the crying in the end made them lose their appetite. The 4 of them took their things and got up to leave. The big boy was left to the side. His face turned red, and he quickly went forward to hold Jing Yunjiao's shoulder. Jing Yunjiao's face turned cold and his body stiffened. His right hand grabbed the opponent's wrist and exerted force, throwing him over his shoulder. With a loud bang, the noisy restaurant instantly quieted down. Everyone in the surroundings was dumbfounded. "Sorry, I don't like people touching me, so I subconsciously defended myself," Jing Yunjiao said. Although it was an apology, he felt that if he touched her again, he would end up the same way. It seemed like it was done on purpose. That boy's back was numb. He rubbed on the ground for a while, gritted his teeth, and groaned twice. His mind was in a daze. By the time he reacted, Jing Yunjiao and the others had already left. Not only was he thrown for nothing, but he also failed to achieve his goal. What Jing Yunjiao hated the most were people who acted as peacemakers without distinguishing right from wrong. That boy was sitting at the table next to Dao Ji, so he was very close to her. Therefore, he clearly heard what Dao Ji said. However, when Dao Ji opened her mouth, he didn't stop her. Instead, he watched Dao Ji cry for 20 minutes before he went forward to persuade her to make peace. Obviously, he felt that girls who cried were pitiful. That move just now was really amazing. In Yarrow Baobao's eyes, Jing Yunjiao had already become a Hercules. A real person doesn't show his true colors. That's quite impressive, isn't it? If I meet a pervert in the future, I'll call you. Hua Tianxian smiled and said. That move just now was very professional. It seems like you have some foundation in fighting, right? Chapter 690. Ren Xingyue's expression brightened slightly. Her eyes under her black-rimmed glasses were particularly spirited at this moment. She looked at Jing Yunjiao with a scorching gaze, which made people confused. I know some self-defense skills, Jing Yunjiao said. Hua Tianxian raised her eyebrows and revealed an expression of as expected. She knew that this Jing Yunjiao was not simple. Ren Xingyue's face lit up with joy. She changed her reserved attitude and hurriedly said, "Can you teach me a few moves? It's like this. I've been writing a police and bandit novel recently. The female lead knows martial arts. I've looked up a lot of videos and various information, but I always felt that it was a little lacking. But when I saw you move just now, I immediately felt that it was different. It was fast and accurate." Jing Yunjiao and the other two were surprised. "You write novels?" Ren Xingyue was stunned for a moment, and the next second, she was a little embarrassed. "Yes, I can't always spend my uncle's money, so I've been trying to write some things to earn money to support myself since a long time ago. It's considered a small achievement." "Jing Yunjiao, can you help me?" "Of course, I won't let you work for nothing. I can pay you a certain amount of remuneration." Jing Yunjiao chuckled. "Forget about the remuneration. It's just a small matter," Jing Yunjiao said. Previously, when they were in Huaning County, she had been teaching Xiao Haiqing and the other two martial arts, so this was not a problem at all. Ren Xingyue smiled. Her originally slightly gloomy temperament dissipated a lot at this time. "Seeing how amazing you are, I knew that military training wouldn't be a problem for you." Yarrow Baobao looked at Jing Yunjiao pitifully and said pitifully, "My parents and my older brother all told me to pretend to be sick during military training. How do you guys think I can pretend to be sick? I don't want to be in the sun. When the time comes, I'll be sweating all over. It'll definitely be uncomfortable. If there were no accidents, the military training would be held in 2 days. By then, all the students would have arrived at the school, and some of the daily affairs would have been settled. As for the location of the military training, there were rumors that it would be held at an old military base. The annual military training of University A was extremely perverted. Other than students with certain medical conditions that were inappropriate to participate, the rest of the students were required to attend the training if there were no special circumstances. The training lasted for half a month. It wasn't a long time, but it was said that every year, many students would cry and make a fuss, wanting to run away. "You don't like military training? It's still good to have some proper training," Jing Yunjiao softly replied. "No, my brother said that the military training is scary. He also said that many of his classmates fainted from heatstroke during the military training. Some of them even went crazy and got dizzy from the sun. They couldn't even recognize the way and wouldn't stop even if they bumped into a wall. Anyway, he said that if I go, I'll be a different person when I come back," Yarrow Baobao said. Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but laugh. He finally understood. It wasn't that Yarrow Baobao was afraid of the military training, but her family had described it as terrifying. After meeting baby Yarrow's mother, he could totally imagine it. "Baby Yarrow, if you don't experience the military training at University A, then you've come here for nothing. But if you think about it, you're so fair and tender. Who knows if you'll turn into a black coal ball when you come back? You really need this skin to cover up your flaws. Look at me, I don't need it. Even if I'm tanned, I'll still be a beauty," Hua Tianxian said proudly with an arrogant face. Chapter 691. Yarrow Baobao pouted at Hua Tianxian angrily. "I'm not ugly. It's just military training. Fine, I'll go." Yarrow Baobao snorted. "I'll bet that you'll be crying in less than 3 days after you go." Hua Tianxian's face was full of arrogance and disdain, completely looking like an imperial concubine who had just won a palace fight. Her appearance was indeed a bit deserving of a beating, but after getting to know her, Jing Yunjiao also knew that this person had this kind of self-centered temper. Her words were always big, but it didn't look like she was going overboard. "Then I'll bet with you. If I don't cry, Hua Tianxian, you'll have to wash my clothes for a month. Oh right, you'll have to help me tidy up my bed." Yarrow Baobao's temper flared. Jing Yunjiao and Ren Xingyue looked at each other and walked in front helplessly. Yarrow Baobao was a person with simple limbs. She didn't know how to tidy things. It was obvious that she wanted Hu Tianxian to be her servant. Hu Tianxian looked confident. Sure. But if you lose, you'll have to clean our dorm for a month. Is that okay with you? No problem. Yarrow Baobao was full of fighting spirit. Ha. Little girl, we've already made the bet. Even if you beg me in the future, I won't take back the bet. Heavenly Immortal Hu rolled her eyes and wagged her tail, which was about to reach the sky. She raised her head and puffed out her chest, looking down on everything. Hu Tianxian's personality really lived up to her name. Her parents really had foresight. Since school had just started, everything was rather harmonious. On the afternoon of the second day, everyone received their uniform. Seeing the camouflage uniform, Hu Tianxian's temper was clearly a little worse that day. Yarrow Baobao, on the other hand, found it refreshing. She had long gotten tired of the pink color her parents and brother bought for her, so she was especially satisfied with the military training uniform. However, before the military training started, something happened that Hu Tianxian and Yarrow Baobao couldn't accept. A university had strict requirements. For this military training, all the girls had to have short hair that reached their ears. Jing Yunjiao was very straightforward. On the morning of the third day, he went out. Not long after, he walked back briskly. His beautiful black hair had disappeared without a trace, and his elegant short hair made him look somewhat handsome. Everyone was stunned when they saw him. Hu Tianxian's face was originally full of resentment, but when she saw Jing Yunjiao's appearance, she felt that he wasn't ugly. She felt a little more confident and dragged Yarrow Baobao to cut her hair together. They both have short hair, but why is there such a big difference? Looks like I'm born to be a beauty, not a handsome guy. Hu Tianxian hummed, feeling a sense of emptiness in her head. She wanted to ask for comfort, but she couldn't bring herself to do so. The weather is too hot, and it's inconvenient to grow your hair. Just bear with it for a while. It'll grow back in a few months. Jing Yunjiao had always been a person who didn't like hypocrisy. He didn't know how to comfort people at all. Hu Tianxian raised her eyebrows and threw the mirror on the table. She was full of resentment. Other than a portion of the freshmen who didn't participate in the military training, almost all the freshmen in the university looked the same. The day after the haircut, a car stopped at the school gate and took everyone to the military base. Such a big car with a shed. It's like pulling a pig. Hu Tianxian didn't forget to grumble. Jing Yunjiao frowned inwardly. Yarrow Baobao was even more tactless. Have you seen a pig being pulled? Is it like what we're doing now? Hu Tianxian rolled her eyes. There were many students squeezed into the big car. Before they reached the military base, they were already sweating profusely. Voices of resentment could be heard all around them, and some students were even jealous. Yarrow Baobao had endured for 2 hours. She rubbed her nose and looked like she was about to cry. Chapter 692. Hu Tianxian also looked like she couldn't take it, but when she saw Yarrow Baobao, she immediately felt energized. She tidied her hair, took out a small mirror, and looked at herself. She hummed softly. Her endurance was a little stronger. A few hours later, the car stopped at the military training base. According to the class assignments, the instructor guided them to their dormitories, put away their things, and gathered immediately. The military training base was huge and could accommodate thousands of students. All kinds of training facilities were perfect. At first glance, one could tell that the training intensity was not low. The afternoon sun made people dizzy and their heads felt like they were smoking. Even the soles of their feet felt like they were stepping on iron plates. In front of dozens of people was a meticulous instructor. This instructor looked to be in his 20s. He was very serious and familiar. All of you, don't whisper to each other. A loud shout made everyone sober up. Good morning, everyone. The instructor said politely and continued, my name is Qi Zhong. From today onwards, I will be your instructor. If you have any problems, you can look for me. However, from today onwards, no matter if you are a top student or a special student, you must obey orders. You are not allowed to make a sound during training. If you speak, you must report it first. Every one of you should know the rules here. Don't break them knowingly. After Qi Zhong finished speaking, he glanced at everyone and pointed at one of the boys' clothes. Here, no one cares if you're handsome or not. Wear your clothes properly. The boy's collar was slightly open. His camouflage uniform had become fashionable. He immediately tidied it up. The others also adjusted themselves very cooperatively. Qi Zhong held a name list in his hand and glanced at it. His gaze swept across Jing Yunjiao's face. After a while, he said, "Attention." Everyone subconsciously puffed out their chests and retracted their legs. Military posture for 1 hour. After he finished speaking, he pointed at the soldier next to him. The soldier's posture was standard. He looked straight ahead and maintained this posture for a long time. The students secretly complained, but they still did as they were told. Jing Yunjiao thought for a long time before he remembered who Qi Zhong was. He seemed to be one of Li Xiaoyun's brothers. However, when he first saw Li Xiaoyun's 6 friends, they were dressed casually and looked sloppy. Their temperament was completely different from the instructor in front of him. It had to be said that he finally looked like a proper soldier now. He looked very handsome and masculine, and his gaze was firm. Compared to the instructors of the nearby classes, Qi Zhong was clearly the most handsome one. However, Jing Yunjiao was also a little confused. Li Xiaoyun's brothers should not have a low military rank. Why would they come to such a military training base to be instructors? Could it be Li Xiaoyun's arrangement? Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but be suspicious. After all, Li Xiaoyun was indeed someone who would do such a thing. Back then, he had even entered No. 1 middle school to be an idle PE teacher. Even if he appeared at the military training base now, she wouldn't be surprised at all. The scorching sun overhead grew thicker and thicker. Yarrow Baobao and Hua Tianxian, who were beside Jing Yunjiao, swayed slightly. The military training had just begun, and the 2 young ladies couldn't hold on anymore. Taking advantage of the fact that the instructor had turned around, Hua Tianxian secretly tugged at Jing Yunjiao. Only then did she regain her balance. She exhaled and said softly, "He just arrived and is already at military posture for an hour. This instructor is too evil." As soon as she finished speaking, Qi Zhong turned around and glanced at Hua Tianxian. "You, step out," Qi Zhong said bluntly. Hua Tianxian rolled her eyes and walked out speechlessly. This instructor's ears were too sharp. Chapter 693. Jing Yunjiao was speechless. An hour of military posture was nothing to her, and to be honest, it wasn't particularly heavy. It was just that most of her classmates had bones that couldn't be lifted, so it was a little difficult to endure. Hua Tianxian, the young miss, was even more so. After interacting with her for 2 days, she discovered that Hua Tianxian looked like she had nothing left to live for, let alone training. Even walking a few more steps on a daily basis would make Hua Tianxian look like she was about to die. She had mocked baby Yarrow as an alternative way of comforting herself. To put it bluntly, she was just being stubborn. Hua Tianxian walked to the front and glanced at the instructor. "What did you just say?" Qi Zhong asked sternly. "Instructor, I said that your skin is dark and manly." Hua Tianxian wasn't stupid. A wise man submits to circumstances. Qi Zhong glanced at her and said, "That's great. I don't like people praising me, so you'll be in military posture for 2 hours. When Hua Tianxian heard this, she lowered her tail slightly. "I can't even praise you. Instructor, we're all students. Is there a need to be so harsh? Military management means that you will be trained according to the requirements of a soldier. This has been the rule of a university for many years," Qi Zhong said, then said, "Jing Yunjiao, don't you think so?" Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched. This Qi Zhong, was he doing this on purpose? "Instructor, whatever you say." "I can't make the decision," Jing Yunjiao said bluntly. Qi Zhong raised his eyebrows. "Just obey orders. Jing Yunjiao will be Class A07's monitor for now. After an hour, you'll be in charge of dismissing the class and taking them out for lunch." "Yes, instructor." Jing Yunjiao was helpless. The others couldn't help but turn to look at Jing Yunjiao, feeling somewhat uncomfortable. Jing Yunjiao was beautiful. Her skin was as white as jade, and her expression was cold and refreshing. This kind of demeanor was indeed eye-catching. However, if she became the class monitor because of this, she really couldn't be convinced. However, as soon as the instructor arrived, the students didn't dare to make a sound. The instructor looked at Jing Yunjiao and chuckled. Then, he turned around and left the group of students behind. As soon as his figure disappeared, the class immediately let out a long sigh. "I'm so tired. There are still more than 30 minutes left. Really, it's too tiring. The instructor is quite handsome, but he doesn't look human when he's handsome. It's only the first day, how are we going to survive the next half a month?" Jing Yunjiao felt a headache coming on. Qi Zhong was purposely causing trouble for her. He clearly knew that this was the first day when she needed to set the rules, yet he still ran away and asked her to do something about it. "Quiet," Jing Yunjiao said. The cold voice was very loud and clear. Everyone was stunned for a moment. They were silent for a few seconds, but in the blink of an eye, they were noisy again. "Class monitor, since the instructor isn't here, why are you so fierce?" That's right. The instructor is so nice to you. You can just talk to him later. Do you really want us to stand for an hour? That's too tiring." Jing Yunjiao lifted her feet and walked to the front. Looking at the crowd, she was still polite. "I don't care about anything else. I only know that my task now is to make you stand in military posture for this hour. I hope you won't make things difficult for me." She wasn't the type to use a chicken feather as an arrow, but she had always been clear about what she should do based on her position. This was military training, after all. After all, they weren't here to play. Although they weren't real soldiers, they were still related to the military. At the very least, they still needed to be respected. "We didn't make things difficult for you. The instructor isn't here. Can't you relax a little?" a student said. Chapter 694. On the first day of the military training, everyone was the most resentful. After all, they had never suffered like this before, so they were somewhat disappointed. Moreover, the one who was favored by the instructor at this time would inevitably be disliked by the other students. These students were somewhat temperamental. They were bored all the way in the car and then came out to bask in the sun for 20 minutes. Their mood was extremely bad. Some people were dissatisfied and refuted, but others directly sat on the ground and relaxed. "I don't want to stop you if you want to relax, but it's not only our class that is training here. Students from other classes are watching, and their instructors naturally see it clearly. When Instructor Qi comes back, if he hears something bad from others, the training will definitely be more intense. Now the choice is up to you. You'd better think clearly about whether you want to cooperate or not," Jing Yunjiao said directly. Even if Qi Zhong came back to trouble her, she wouldn't feel that she couldn't bear it. After all, when she was practicing martial arts in the space, the intensity of the training was not lower than this military training. Moreover, Qi Zhong was Li Xiaoyun's brother. The reason why he asked her to stand up just now was most likely to tease her. It was impossible for him to deliberately target her. So to put it bluntly, if these students didn't listen to the instructor, they would only suffer in the end. However, after hearing Jing Yunjiao's words, some people hesitated a little and restrained themselves. "We are 20 or 30 meters away from the other classes. If you feel bored, you can chat in a low voice to pass the time. The instructors of other classes can't hear you, and I won't complain. However, it's best not to make any excessive movements. Otherwise, it will make everyone's training more intense, and the gains won't make up for the losses, right?" Jing Yunjiao said again. After all, they were all students, and the training was short-term. It was basically impossible to ask them to be like real soldiers. "That's quite reasonable," a student whispered. The two students sitting on the ground thought about it and got up. They agreed with Jing Yunjiao's words. None of them wanted to go against their own bodies. It was true that the instructor wanted Jing Yunjiao to watch over them, but Jing Yunjiao wasn't the only one who could complain. If there were other instructors meddling in other people's business, then they would be in deep trouble. "Hey, Jing Yunjiao, do you know the instructor?" Suddenly, another student whispered. "Yes, how do you know him?" How was the instructor? Can you ask him to lower the intensity of his training in the future? Another person asked. Jing Yunjiao was still standing straight, as if he had entered a meditative state. Not really. We've only met once. I only found out his name today, Jing Yunjiao said. Ah. I thought you guys were very close. The classmate looked disappointed. Targeting Jing Yunjiao was just a spur of the moment. Now that they saw that she wasn't the kind of person who would bully others just because she was an instructor, everyone was naturally much friendlier. At the same time, Qi Zhong was in a nearby building, using a pair of binoculars to observe the situation. Seeing that the students were actually very cooperative and standing in a military posture, his stern face revealed a hint of satisfaction. Jing Yunjiao really has some skills. She should be able to make those little fellas cooperate with her with just a few words. You have to call her sister-in-law. In front of the table behind him, Li Xiaoyun sat on a chair, playing with a dart in his hand. He aimed at the target on the opposite wall and gently threw it, hitting the bullseye. I'm her instructor now. If I call her sister-in-law, those students' curiosity will annoy her to death. Big brother, you don't have the qualifications to ask for a title now. Chapter 695. Qi Zhong spoke in a deadpan manner. He looked like a straightforward and honest person at first glance. He was handsome and masculine. Although he didn't look as noble as Li Xiaoyun, he gave off a mature vibe that didn't match his age. I made you an instructor to help her. Don't make trouble for her, Li Xiaoyun said faintly. Big brother, why don't you do such a good job yourself? Why did you make me do it? Besides, sister-in-law will know that you arranged it when she sees me. It doesn't make any difference. Second brother, you're getting more and more long-winded. You're injured and recuperating anyway. It's not a grievance to be an instructor. I have to go on a mission tomorrow. I'm afraid it'll take nearly a month. During this time, take good care of her. Li Xiaoyun stood up and said quietly. Qi Zhong nodded. Okay. Big brother, is the mission dangerous? When isn't it dangerous? Li Xiaoyun asked and patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry and stay here to recuperate. Third brother and the others are here. It won't be a problem. After Li Xiaoyun finished speaking, he took Qi Zhong's binoculars and looked in Jing Yunjiao's direction. After a while, he put down the binoculars and smiled. My Zhao looks quite handsome with short hair. Behind him, Qi Zhong's mouth twitched. All the girls now had short hair and wore hats. From afar, they all looked the same. How could he tell that Jing Yunjiao was handsome? Qi Zhong was speechless. After more than half an hour, when all the students went to the cafeteria to eat, he finally showed up. He glanced at the crowd but couldn't tell which one was Jing Yunjiao. He only felt that there were so many similar backs that it was dazzling. In this big cafeteria, they had to line up to eat. The other classes were led by instructors, so it was very quiet. As the temporary class monitor, Jing Yunjiao could only temporarily take on the role of the leader, leading a group of people to line up to eat. Although the students used to be more undisciplined, the other classes around them were too strict. They didn't want to stand out, so Jing Yunjiao's job was very easy. The first day of training was actually not very heavy. After dinner, it was free time. Qi Zhong led the students to explain the necessary rules in the base. In the dormitory, there was a class of girls. It was very lively, but because it was a fixed time to turn off the lights, and because it was an extremely tiring day, everyone quickly fell asleep. Early the next morning, just as dawn broke, the whistle sounded. Gather. I'll give you 5 minutes to pack up. If you're late by 1 minute, you'll do 30 push-up. As soon as his voice fell, everyone shuddered and hurriedly climbed out of bed. The students in the room were like headless flies, bumping into each other anxiously. Dong-dong sounds could be heard continuously. If they weren't in a hurry, they would bump into someone or their hands would slip and grab the wrong thing. It was a mess. I'm going crazy. 5 minutes, it takes more than 5 minutes to wash my face. Yarrow Baobao stamped her feet anxiously, but she didn't move. Yesterday, the instructor taught them how to fold their quilts, but after learning for a whole night, she still couldn't fold the quilt into a tofu shape. After a night, not only did she not improve, she even regressed a lot. Although the quilts on other people's beds weren't as square as the instructors, at least there was some shape. However, no matter how hard she tried, her quilt was like a puddle of mud. Yarrow Baobao, why are you standing there? Put on your clothes. Hua Tianxian was speechless. Yarrow Baobao's handicapped hand was really incomparable. However, in this way, she would definitely be punished, right? Chapter 696. Yarrow Baobao's mind went blank. Put on the clothes. No, I won't make it in 5 minutes. I'm so anxious. Yarrow Baobao pouted. She wished she had 5 hands. She hurriedly pulled out the camouflage uniform that was curled up into a ball from the blanket. Due to her nervousness, she used a bit more strength than usual. A ripping sound was heard, and Jingyun Zhao, Hua Tianxian, and the others were all stunned. It's torn. Yarrow Baobao was stunned. She raised her head and looked at Jing Yunjiao in a daze. She wasn't that strong. Jing Yunjiao rubbed between her eyebrows. Don't worry about it. Put it on first. There was a singlet under the clothes, and the tear was on the sleeve. The tear wasn't very long, but if she didn't put it on, it would be terrible if the instructor came in and took a look. Jing Yunjiao was very fast. She was on the top bunk, so she only saw the tofu pieces neatly placed on top. Not only that, but her clothes were also neatly put on. Compared to the other people who were in a hurry, her reaction was simply methodical. It wasn't that Jing Yunjiao was talented, but she knew that there was no point in being anxious. The more anxious she was, the more chaotic it would be. Therefore, she tried her best to relax and do things one by one. Naturally, she would be able to do it well. However, not everyone had such a strong mentality. Jing Yunjiao and Ren Xingyue brushed their teeth and washed their faces as quickly as possible. When they were ready, Hua Tianxian and Yarrow Baobao were still in a hurry. The two of them had messy hair. Yarrow Baobao was hurriedly putting on her shoes, while Hua Tianxian was pouring out bottles and jars from her personal belongings. She no longer had that anxious look on her face. Now, she was slowly touching her face. Jing Yunjiao and Ren Xingyue were speechless. 30 seconds left. Jing Yunjiao reminded Yarrow Baobao as she helped her tidy up the bed. When Yarrow Baobao heard this, she immediately screamed, I quit. It's too late. Since it's already too late, there's no need to rush. Let's take it slow. Hua Tianxian grinned, crossed her legs, and smiled at her makeup mirror. Jing Yunjiao was speechless. If these two people were not her roommates, she would really want to be out of sight and out of mind. Beep beep, the time outside was cut off. There were still half of the students left in the room. They looked at each other in dismay. Some of them struggled for a while before running out, their clothes disheveled. Jing Yunjiao and Ren Xingyue were just about to leave when Hua Tianxian stopped them. Hey, can you two be more loyal? We'll share blessings and misfortunes together. We're from the same dormitory after all. There's no need to abandon us, right? As she spoke, her slender fingers reached over and tugged at their collars. Jing Yunjiao sighed. Forget it. Celestial Immortal, hurry up. Xingyue, let's help Baobao. These two young ladies were really hard to please. However, there were quite a few young ladies in the class. The rest of the students were basically in the same state as Yarrow Baobao and Hua Tianxian. They either didn't know how to tidy up or were smearing all sorts of messy things on their faces. I won't mistreat my face no matter what. The sun is so hot outside. If I don't take some protective measures, I'll peel off a layer of skin in half a month. Hua Tianxian said matter-of-factly. If you do push-ups like this, you'll peel off a layer of skin. Jing Yunjiao shook her head and added. I'll just treat the training as a form of weight loss. I go to the gym every day anyway. Hua Tianxian smiled and reached out to poke Jing Yunjiao's face. You better apply some too. If you become ugly, you'll cry. Chapter 697. Hua Tianxian's attitude was shockingly good, but she didn't use it on the right path. Based on her clear mind just now, As long as she didn't spend too much effort on her face, she would have had enough time. Unfortunately, she was too proud of her looks. Jing Yunjiao lowered his head and looked at his collar. He was speechless. At this moment, people were leaving the room one after another. By the time Yarrow Baobao and Hua Tianxian were done, more than 10 minutes had passed. When they left the room, they saw their classmates lowering their heads. Qi Zhong's face was gloomy. He glared at Hua Tianxian. He was quite clear on what kind of person Jing Yunjiao was. She was confident and decisive when doing things. Logically speaking, it was impossible for her to exceed the time limit, but now, she was one of the people who exceeded the time limit the longest. It was obvious that she was delayed by these two spoiled and delicate ladies. He hated this kind of weak girl the most. Their bodies were like willow branches, wishy-washy and swaying wherever the wind blew. They didn't have any backbone at all. Do you know how long you're late? Qi Zhong's gaze was serious. Hua Tianxian raised her hand. She was wearing an exquisite woman's watch. It was studded with diamonds. Under the faint morning light, it shone faintly and looked especially noble. 12 minutes. But instructor, we're already very fast. As a girl, of course we want to look good. When noon comes, the sun will be so strong. If we don't put on some makeup, we'll become ugly. Hua Tianxian smiled and was extremely calm. One of them glanced at the watch on her wrist and his gaze darkened. One look and you could tell that this girl was a pretentious one. Of all the people Jing Yunjiao could be close to, she just had to stay with her. What if this girl led him astray in the long run? The base has a rule that all students are only allowed to bring daily necessities. Therefore, electronic products are not allowed. That includes the watch on your wrist. Qi Zhong said coldly. He added, take it off. Hua Tianxian was stunned. She rolled her eyes and elegantly took off the watch on her wrist. She threw it at Qi Zhong. All right, I'll give it to you. This watch is worth more than 100,000. I only bought it a few days ago. But if you like it, I won't be stingy. Arrogant and willful. Qi Zhong's eyes were cold. It seems that you have brought a lot of things here. I didn't check them yesterday because I trusted you. But it seems that you have disappointed me. After saying that, he signaled to the lifestyle committee member next to him and walked directly into the dormitory with a few soldiers. There was a fragrant smell in the girls' dormitory. High-class perfume, and several brands at that. It seems that there are quite a few people who have made mistakes. Qi Zhonggang stepped forward and said softly. Then, he commanded, check all the items. Confiscate everything that doesn't conform to the rules. As soon as he said that, the girls rushed in like crazy. Hua Tianxian's face paled as well. She finally lost her composure. They watched as the committee member and two soldiers pulled out everyone's luggage and dumped them on the ground. Ah, those are my skincare products. Be gentle, it's very expensive. Even if one bottle was broken, the loss would be unbearable. Instructor, I know that you don't like me because I said bad things about you yesterday. I'm willing to apologize for my bad attitude just now. But don't you think that you're going overboard? Hua Tianxian said angrily. She was Hua Tianxian. In her life, no one had dared to yell at her. Qi Zhong stood tall and straight. He turned around and stared at her. I admire your attitude when you know you're wrong. But you're brainless. No illegal items are allowed in the base. This is the rule. Chapter 698. Qi Zhong's aura of righteousness was as cold as ice. Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but feel a little surprised when he saw this. Qi Zhong wasn't so cold in private. He also had some sloppy friends around him, so he didn't appear to be so unsmiling. However, just like him, Li Xiaoyun's attitude towards acquaintances and strangers was completely different. The first time she saw Li Xiaoyun, he seemed a little hypocritical. His smile seemed modest but was actually indifferent. But now, his attitude towards her was gentle and easy to talk to. Hua Tianxian frowned at his rebuttal. Instructor, you're a soldier, but we're not. It's just half a month of military training. Let's just understand each other and let it pass. Why are you so serious? Besides, My bag is full of personal items. My underwear is still there. How am I supposed to wear it if you let someone throw it on the ground? Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched. Baby Yarrow's head was almost buried in the ground. The committee members assigned to their dormitory were all women, but there were also men in the military training. At this moment, when they heard the commotion, they were all looking at the door. When they heard Hua Tianxian's words, a few of them sighed a few times and specially glanced at the things on the ground. Shameless. Qi Zhong didn't expect Hua Tianxian to be so direct. His face stiffened. Of course I can say that if you can do it. You're not a woman, so you don't know how important skincare products are to women. Are we going to be so ugly that we can't be seen in public for a year or so just for these 10 days? Besides, a drop of my skincare products is more expensive than a gram of gold. Hua Tianxian chattered like a female warrior. After she finished speaking, the girls behind her quickly nodded in agreement. Unreasonable. The school rules stipulate that you can only bring sunscreen at most. It's natural for me to clean them up. Qi Zhong snorted. Hua Tianxian didn't get angry. Instead, she laughed. She walked over with an air of elegance and took out her skincare products. One by one, she took them out. This is for sunscreen. It's just that you have to apply a layer of something else before sunscreen. Look at these instructions. It's all written clearly. You can't miss a single step. But instructor, I can tell that you don't have a girlfriend just by looking at you. You don't even know about skincare products, Hua Tianxian said. Perfume is also used for sunscreen? Qi Zhong mocked. This wretched girl was really stubborn. Sure enough, there were very few girls in this world who were as straightforward as Jing Yunzhao. Hua Tianxian turned her head away uncomfortably. Okay, let's both take a step back, okay? Forget about the perfume, I'm willing to hand it over, but not the skincare products. I want to keep them. Qi Zhong laughed coldly, but in the next second, he took the items from Hua Tianxian's hands and said, No, you have to hand everything over now, including the sunscreen. Instantly, resentment filled the air. Hua Tianxian was so angry that she gritted her teeth. She glared at Qi Zhong with her beautiful eyes. However, her good manners and upbringing didn't make her lose her temper. Otherwise, Jing Yunzhao was really worried that she would take things too hard and rush up to Qi Zhong to fight. Qi Zhong was a man of his word, and so were all the lifestyle committee members. Immediately, all the bottles and cans were thrown into a big basket. Peng, peng, peng. Don't worry. After the military training ends, everything will be returned to their rightful owners. However, you are all my soldiers now. You have to obey my orders wholeheartedly. After Qi Zhong finished speaking, he heard many girls start to cry. Yarrow Baobao was also shocked. She had never been scolded by anyone since she was young. How could she bear this grievance? What are you crying for? Isn't it just 15 days? Qi Zhong, kill me if you can. Otherwise, in half a month, even if you die heroically, I will dig you out. Chapter 699. Hua Tianxian's eyes were also red, but she was still very stubborn and had a bad temper. Qi Zhong was taken aback by her attitude. He had thought that celestial immortal Hua was a spoiled young lady who thought she was infallible, exactly the same as those he had seen in the past. However, he didn't expect her to surprise him. She had quite the backbone. However, we'll see if you can endure these 15 days. Qi Zhong looked down at her and suddenly blew the whistle. Everyone, gather. Suddenly, there was a commotion around them. Almost everyone rushed out in an instant and obediently stood on the training ground. They were orderly and swift. Hua Tianxian rolled her eyes at Qi Zhong with her nose in the air. She turned around and joined the team with Jing Yunzhao and the other two. Among these students, Jing Yunzhao was the only one whose belongings were not confiscated. First of all, even if she brought anything, she would put it in her space. Second of all, she was very nimble. Whether it was snacks or skincare products, she did not bring them. There were only some self-produced herbs, medicine, vegetables, and fruits in her space. Those who are 5 minutes late or less will do 30 push-ups. Between 5 and 10 minutes, 60 push-ups. Those who are more than 10 minutes late will do 100 push-ups. Start now. The rest of you, stand at attention and wait. His voice was like a bell, but it was a heavy blow. Of course, the only students who were more than 10 minutes late were Jing Yunjiao and the other two. The others glanced at the four of them with sympathy and secretly shook their heads. Jing Yunjiao walked out and lay on the ground without a word. She had already started doing push-ups. Hua Tianxian was also very straightforward. She knew that she did not follow the rules and deserved to be punished. Therefore, she did it without another word. Ren Xingyue and Yarrow Baobao did the same. However, among the four of them, Yarrow Baobao was more miserable. She had never done push-ups before. She could not even do one, let alone 100. As soon as she pressed her body down, her whole body fell to the ground. The dust on the ground soon covered her face. She was crying and doing push-ups at the same time. She looked extremely pitiful. Qi Zhong was not a person who would take pity on women. He did not stop her. Crying again. You are really made of water. Don't forget that the 3 days are not up yet. Now that you have lost the bet, you have to be on duty for a month after the military training, Hua Tianxian added. Instantly, Yarrow Baobao cried even harder. Celestial Immortal Hua, you're lying. You said it was a pity not to come to military training. It's so tiring and tough. If I had known, I would have pretended to be sick. Convince her. No way. Isn't it just 100 push-ups? I'll just do it slowly. I'm here for training anyway. Even if I don't do push-ups, I'll still have to do something else. It's still tough and tiring. What's the difference? Puss. Was. Her movements were standard, and every deep press was just right. She didn't even pause in the middle. The boys were dumbfounded. Those were push-ups. Almost all of the body's strength was on the arms. A normal girl would not be able to do it after a few. Even a boy would not be able to do it so effortlessly. Qi Zhong heaved a sigh of relief. He also felt a little bitter in his heart. Fortunately, his sister-in-law was capable. Otherwise, when the boss found out that he punished his sister-in-law, he would definitely find trouble with him. By then, the training he had to endure would be 10 times more intense than this. However, his sister-in-law was close to Hua Tianxian. He could not treat her differently in front of so many people. Chapter 700. After the others were done with their push-ups, Qi Zhong led the rest of the team and started running. Jing Yunjiao and the other 3 were still working hard to complete the task. A chorus of chants sounded on the training ground, and it sounded quite inspiring. It was just that Jing Yunjiao's group of 4 was too eye-catching. It was still all right during training. After all, no one dared to disobey the instructor's orders. But when it was time to rest, even students from other classes came over to join in the fun. Jing Yunjiao's push-ups were done very quickly. Logically speaking, they should have finished by now. However, Hua Tianxian and the other 2 were still persisting. If she left first, it would be too disloyal of her. When she returned, Hua Tianxian would probably nag at her for a while. Therefore, she decided to take her time and just treat it as a break. A few steps away, many people had gathered together. When they saw the sorry state of Hua Tianxian and the other 2, they covered their mouths and snickered. Their laughter was a little wild. How could Hua Tianxian, the daughter of a rich family, afford to lose face? What are you looking at? Hua Tianxian said fiercely. Hey, why are you being so fierce? We heard that there's a girl named Jing Yunjiao in your class who failed to seduce the instructor. That's why she was punished by the instructor. Is that true? A courageous classmate came over and asked. When he said that, the surrounding people looked at him with even more disdain. Your class's instructor is indeed quite good-looking. However, she dared to seduce him at the beginning of the military training. No wonder he didn't accept her, someone else said. When Jing Yunjiao heard this, he immediately stood up from the ground and asked, who said that? What? The other party was stunned. Who said that I seduced the instructor? Jing Yunjiao said coldly. After he finished speaking, he glanced around and saw that Dao Ji was about 10 meters away. She quickly turned her head and seemed to be chatting with her classmates. I don't know. It was spread last night that someone saw Jing Yunjiao looking for the instructor in the middle of the night and was chased out. Oh right, Jing Yunjiao is being supported by someone. Every time he goes to a new place, he will find a new backer. The classmate was shocked after he finished speaking. He pointed at Hua Tianxian and said, "She's not Jing Yunjiao. You are." The others were also stunned. This morning, Jing Yunjiao's name became famous among the girls in their class. During the morning training, everyone was guessing who was Jing Yunjiao. But in the end, the bad-tempered girl who was doing push-ups on the ground. Almost everyone thought she was the instructor. But now, it was actually proven that Jing Yunjiao was the girl who didn't look like someone who would seduce others. Her appearance was extremely beautiful. Everyone had the same hairstyle, but she gave people a very refreshing feeling. Although she was good-looking, she was not the enchanting type. On the contrary, her eyebrows were somewhat cold and heroic, and her short hair made her look even cooler. Seducing the instructor with such a face. Why did it feel like something was wrong? However, as the saying goes, you can't judge a book by its cover. There must be a reason for such rumors. Jing Yunjiao's expression was so cold that it seemed like he wanted to kill someone. He pointed in Dao Ji's direction and said, "You're in the same class as her, right?" The girl nodded. Jing Yunjiao walked over. Hua Tianxian saw him and quickly got up. She did not forget to grab Yaro Baobao and Ren Xingyue and said, "Stop doing it. Go and see what's going on." She actually said that Jing Yunjiao seduced the instructor in the middle of the night. Was this a joke? She and Jing Yunjiao lived in the same bunk. If Jing Yunjiao went out in the middle of the night, she would definitely be the first to know. Moreover, there were guards outside at night. If they really went to find the instructor, they would definitely be discovered. Now, it was obvious that someone was deliberately framing him. Chapter 701. Jing Yunjiao was furious. This Dao Ji had tried to sabotage her time and time again, and now she even used the method she hated the most. If she didn't teach her a lesson, it would be hard to get rid of her anger. Previously, she considered that Dao Ji was from Huaning County and that they were from the same hometown, so there was no need to be tit-for-tat. Even if Dao Ji pretended to be her on the train, she didn't care too much. However, she didn't expect Dao Ji to be so thick-skinned and take the initiative to come to her door. At this time, Jing Yunjiao was so aggressive that everyone looked at each other. Dao Ji panicked and felt nervous. She didn't know what was wrong with her. After arriving at the base yesterday, she found that her and Jing Yunjiao's classes were very close to each other. She didn't care at first, but Jing Yunjiao seemed to have become the class monitor. She led the class and stood at attention. Later, she even organized the students to eat in the cafeteria. From beginning to end, she was calm and composed. Some boys in her class whispered that Jing Yunjiao was good-looking. When she heard that, she felt very uncomfortable. When she went back at night, she chatted with her classmates and said a few words. At that time, she just wanted to vent, but accidentally, all the girls in the class knew. Now, it even reached Jing Yunjiao's ears. "What's wrong with you?" Seeing Dao Ji's nervous look, another girl asked. "Nothing." After a pause, she changed the topic. "It's Jing Yunjiao. I have some conflicts with her. She must be here to make trouble for me now." When the girl next to her heard, she quickly comforted her. "Don't worry. No matter how lawless she is, she can't bully people. We have so many people here. Why should we be afraid of her? But, she's very unreasonable." Dao Ji's face was tense and she looked extremely flustered. At first glance, she looked like she was being bullied. This made the people around Dao Ji dislike Jing Yunjiao even more. This military training class was the same as the class assigned by the school, but the class numbers were randomly selected to make it easier for the instructor to call and arrange. Jing Yunjiao was in class A07, and Dao Ji was in class A08, so they weren't far from each other. When Dao Ji said that, the girl next to her looked over curiously, but after a glance, she smiled. "Don't worry, we can take this opportunity to have a good chat." At this moment, Jing Yunjiao walked over. Ren Xingyue, who was behind him, slowed down. Dao Ji, did you spread the rumor? Jing Yunjiao went straight to the point and asked coldly. Dao Ji hurriedly shook her head. What rumor? I don't know anything about it. You don't know? A straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. You're the only girl in your class that I know, and you're the only one I've had some conflicts with. If it wasn't you, who else could it be? Jing Yunjiao said. What a shameless girl. I don't know what you're talking about. Jing Yunjiao, last time you hit me, I didn't even bother with you. Now you're looking for trouble again. Do you think I'm easy to bully? Dao Ji suddenly roared. Didn't he just say a few bad words behind her back? She didn't believe that Jing Yunjiao hadn't said anything bad about others behind their backs. She must have told her classmates about her matters. If that's the case, then everyone is the same. What right does Jing Yunjiao have to come and find trouble? I hit you. Don't you deserve to be hit? After Jing Yunjiao finished speaking, he raised his hand and slapped her. Dao Ji was stunned for a moment and covered half of her face. Jing Yunjiao, don't bully me too much. What did I do to you for you to hit me like this? When everyone saw this, they hurriedly gathered around. Chapter 702. You've gone too far. Why did you hit my classmate? That's right. You're too cruel. If you hit someone, you shouldn't hit their face. Who's going to take responsibility if they're disfigured? Jing Yunjiao glanced at the crowd and sneered, you're so thick-skinned. You've really opened my eyes. You're in the same class as Dao Ji, so you must be staying in the same dormitory at night. Use your brains and think about whether she was the one who started it and accused me of seducing the instructor. You can talk nonsense and ruin my reputation, but I can't teach you a lesson. School had just started, so they didn't know all their classmates. However, because they lived together during military training, the power of gossip was greater. But after all, it had happened last night, and it hadn't been long since then. After being reminded by Jing Yunjiao, they subconsciously thought about it and admitted it in their hearts. Last night, a classmate said that the instructor in the next class was handsome, and then someone said that the girls in that class were also good-looking. Somehow, Jing Yunjiao was involved in the conversation. It was the first time they heard this name, but it left a deep impression because someone said that she saw Jing Yunjiao hugging instructor Qi, but was rejected by the instructor and ran away in embarrassment. As for the person who said those words, it was indeed Dao Ji. However, because there were more and more things to talk about later, the topic was stolen by others, but she was the first to gossip. Dao Ji looked nervous. She knew that she couldn't hide it, so she admitted directly, I saw it. You went to the instructor and hugged him. By the way, when I came to the capital with you, I also saw you being very intimate with a boy. You two must be boyfriend and girlfriend, and that boy seems to be from a good family. Can you say that you didn't use his money? Can you say that you're not his mistress? Oh, I don't know if you're hallucinating or if you're blind and deaf. You're so good at making up stories. It's a pity that you're not a novelist. Jing Yunjiao's eyes flashed coldly. She then turned to look at Hua Tianxian and said, Tianxian, I'll have to trouble you to call Instructor Qi over. There are some things that we should make clear. I don't want to be confused. Upon hearing that Jing Yunjiao was looking for an instructor, Dao Ji panicked and bit her lip. Okay. Hua Tianxian responded and dragged Yarrow Baobao along. As Ren Xingyue slowly approached, another girl beside Dao Ji stepped forward and held Ren Xingyue's hand. Xingyue, are you friends with Jing Yunjiao? Just in time, help us persuade them. It's not good to hit people for no reason. Our class's instructor is on his way here. Jing Yunjiao was surprised and looked at Ren Xingyue. Ren Xingyue smiled politely. Although I'm in the same dormitory as Jing Yunjiao, it's not my place to meddle in her affairs. The girl paused. Oh, I see. Letting go of her hand, she turned around and walked to Jing Yunjiao's side. Jing Yunjiao, I'm Ju Mai Jun, A08's assistant. Last night, Dao Ji did indeed talk about some things related to you, but freedom of speech should still exist. If she said anything wrong, I'll apologize to you on her behalf. However, she only said one sentence at that time, and she didn't mention it again today. You suddenly running over and hitting someone, in my opinion, you've gone overboard. When Dao Ji heard this, she instantly felt that she had found her organization. Ju Mai Jun was very popular. When she first arrived yesterday, she was elected as the assistant class leader. She was mainly responsible for managing the girls. In Dao Ji's opinion, she was very righteous. Moreover, Ju Mai Jun was very easy to get along with. When she went to school to register, she gave gifts to the students in the nearby dormitory. She also received one. Although she came from a good family, she was not arrogant. Many students now treated her as the center. Chapter 703. Jing Yunjiao sized up Ju Mai Jun in front of her. She could roughly tell that this girl's personality was similar to Qiao Hongye's. On the outside, she looked very kind and reasonable, and had a certain degree of attraction to the surrounding students. However, if nothing unexpected happened, she should be an extremely domineering person in private. She had been suppressed by Qiao Hongye for more than 10 years, so she was very familiar with this kind of character. She simply couldn't think of Ju Mai Jun in a positive light. It's none of your business. Jing Yunjiao coldly looked at her and reached out her hand to pull Dao Ji over. Even with only one hand, she could easily pull Dao Ji over and throw her to the side. Jing Yunjiao stepped forward to teach her a lesson, but immediately heard an instructor roar, "Stop!" A figure flashed in front of her eyes. She hurriedly blocked Dao Ji's side and glared at Jing Yunjiao. The base doesn't allow fighting. Do you want to be expelled from the school? The instructor immediately said. Jing Yunjiao's face was unruly. Fine, I won't do anything. However, this instructor, can I trouble you to tell me how to deal with her for spreading rumors about me? The instructor was stunned. I heard about it just now, but our classmate Dao Ji only said it casually. I'll have her apologize to you. The instructor said. Apologize again? Jing Yunjiao reached out to take off her hat and threw it to the ground. Instructor, it seems that your records aren't as strict as others. Yesterday, our instructor Chi also said that everything should be in line with the military. However, as far as I know, the military isn't as loose as yours, right? Jing Yunjiao's voice was cold. The instructor was also somewhat helpless. After all, the people under him weren't real soldiers, so he didn't have high expectations. Moreover, this Dao Ji was also a girl. Being beaten up just now was already a grievance. If he didn't protect his own students, then the students wouldn't trust him. Jing Yunjiao clearly knew that this matter had nothing to do with the instructor, but she just couldn't stand the way he used apologies to deal with problems. Indeed, it was just a rumor. However, in just one night, everyone in the class knew about it. They even ran to her and pointed out that it was nonsense. Even if she had a good temper, she still couldn't stand it. What do you want? We've already hit him. The other instructor was also a little angry. Your soldiers made a mistake and you're asking me what I want. Are you going to let me handle it just because I said so? Jing Yunjiao replied coldly. The other instructor choked. If you want to punish someone, punish them both. She's in the wrong for spreading rumors, and you're in the wrong for hitting her. Either you apologize to each other and end this matter, or both of you will receive an additional hour of training. Jing Yunjiao snorted in contempt. Because I was wronged, I slapped her and trained her for an hour. Almost all the girls in your class said bad things about me. Dao Ji, the mastermind, also got an hour. You think this is very fair, don't you? Jing Yunjiao said with a gloomy expression. It would have been fine if it had been any other bad words, but they had said that she was a kept woman. How serious was this word? There was no way they wouldn't understand. Moreover, 3 people would make a tiger. After a long time, fake things would become real. She had suffered in this aspect before, so she definitely wouldn't let herself fall into the same trap again. The instructor had never seen such a willful student. Logically speaking, he was already giving face by punishing the student. Couldn't she just go along with the flow? The instructor's face was indifferent. Clearly, he felt that his punishment was very reasonable. Jing Yunjiao was so angry that she laughed. She suddenly moved her wrist, and a trace of hostility flashed in her eyes. Chapter 704. The instructor really couldn't understand. It was just a quarrel between girls. Logically speaking, the one who used her mouth and not her fists was the one who was at a disadvantage. Dao Ji had already been hit, but this girl in front of him was still unforgiving. It was really too much. Just as he was thinking, he saw the girl in front of him smile coldly. The next second, she reached out and gently pushed his arm. He felt his whole body go numb and was immediately pushed to the side. He stared at Dao Ji like a poisonous snake and waved his hand fiercely. There was a crisp sound. 2 hours of additional training. He didn't forget to remind her. Slap. 3 hours. Slap slap. After each slap, Jing Yunjiao didn't forget to say something, which made people's hair stand on end. Dao Ji seemed to be dumbfounded. At first, she struggled a little, but she couldn't compete with Jing Yunjiao's strength. She just let Jing Yunjiao hit her. The sound made people's scalp go numb. After a while, Dao Ji's face was swollen. The instructor wanted to go forward and help, but for some reason, his body didn't listen to him. He couldn't exert any strength and could only watch helplessly. After 10 to 20 slaps in a row, Dao Ji's mouth was bleeding. Jing Yunjiao coldly retracted his hand and stared at the instructor. He chuckled and said, including the one just now, 24 slaps, no more, no less. 24 hours of additional training, right? Dao Ji's mouth made a woo-woo sound. After crying for a while, her eyes rolled back and she fainted. You seriously affect discipline. As she was speaking, she saw Jing Yunjiao take out a bottle and a piece of white cloth from her pocket. After applying some ointment on her face, she directly stuck it on Dao Ji's face. This action really looked a little scary. Everyone was so scared by her hitting that they didn't dare to move. They all thought that Jing Yunjiao was done for. School had just started and it was still during military training. Hitting someone in front of the instructor and so many people, he would be expelled, right? Jing Yunjiao, are you crazy? Such a heavy slap. Ju Meijuan's breathing almost stopped. The shock in her eyes was self-evident. Not to mention her, even Ren Xingyue was stunned. Jing Yunjiao glanced at Ju Meijun coldly. His expression was condescending and his eyes were cold. Didn't the instructor agree? A slap in exchange for an hour of extra training. What did I do wrong? When the instructor heard that, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. How was he going to explain himself when his students were beaten to such a state? At this moment, Hu Tianxian rushed over with Qi Zhong. Qi Zhong's expression changed when he heard that something had happened to Jing Yunjiao. Hu Tianxian was extremely suspicious. Jing Yunjiao had said yesterday that she had only just learned of Qi Zhong's name. Logically speaking, she should not be very familiar with him. However, Qi Zhong's reaction was absolutely not a lie. He was angry, and the degree of concern seemed to be a little excessive. When Qi Zhong arrived and saw this scene, not only was he not shocked, he even heaved a sigh of relief. He immediately said, "Send this girl to the infirmary. All students of Class A08, gather and stand at attention." Instructor Qi, did you say something wrong? Class A07, right? Ju Meijun hurriedly said. Qi Zhong glanced at Ju Meijun with a trace of disgust in his eyes. I'm talking about all of you. Obey the order. Ju Meijuan's heart skipped a beat. The students in the class looked even more aggrieved. They all looked at their instructor. The instructor had just been helped up, and his face was still very pale. He hurriedly nodded and signaled the students to follow Qi Zhong's instructions. Naturally, they had to obey the orders of their superior. Chapter 705. However, Ju Meijun and the others felt uncomfortable when they saw their own instructor acting so cowardly. However, they couldn't resist and just stood there obediently. You guys are really something. Is this a place for you to gossip? Everyone, get on the ground and straighten your backs. Stop until I tell you to. Qi Zhong shouted again. He had heard Hu Tianxian explain the situation briefly. As for how the instructor of A08 was going to deal with him, although he didn't know, it definitely wasn't fair. Otherwise, Jing Yunjiao wouldn't have beaten him up so badly. It was true that he was an instructor, but this base was now his territory. In his territory, the school rules were different. After Qi Zhong finished speaking, he pointed at the instructor beside him and asked Jing Yunjiao, what happened to him? Jing Yunjiao walked over and grabbed the other instructor's arm. He pressed hard on an acupoint with his finger. The instructor gritted his teeth and felt as if he had been stung by an ant. Then, he recovered and moved his arm. When he realized that the numbness in his body was slowly disappearing, he relaxed a little. Sir, Jing Yunjiao, she what? First, tell me how you were going to deal with her. Qi Zhong interrupted him directly. The instructor hesitated for a moment. Apologized to each other and then train for an hour. Qi Zhong's eyes were cold. No wonder. This little soldier really knew how to find trouble for him. If it was in ancient times, the people below him spreading rumors would disturb the morale of the army. The strict military discipline would absolutely not allow this kind of thing to happen. However, because these people were all students, the little soldier's hands and feet were tied. Fortunately, his boss was away on a mission. Otherwise, if he knew that he, Qi Zhong, was the male lead of Jing Yunjiao's rumors, it would really be stupid. Qi Zhong snorted and said, from today onwards, you don't have to be the instructor of A08. I will be in charge of these two classes. Yes, sir. The instructor's face was sad. Go and receive your punishment. You will be responsible for the 24 hours of training, Qi Zhong said again. The instructor nodded again and left. I'm sorry to have caused you trouble, Jing Yunjiao replied politely. Qi Zhong's mouth twitched. So polite. She felt a chill down her spine. The two of them stood a few steps away from the group. Lowering his voice, Qi Zhong asked again, you didn't beat up that person badly, did you? Jing Yunjiao shook his head. I'm not stupid. It's fine as long as I give her a few slaps that hurt enough for her to suffer. If there's really a problem, I'll be the one at a disadvantage. I just put some medicine on her face to reduce the swelling and bruises. The medicine is very effective. She won't be able to tell that there's a problem. Of course, it couldn't be seen on the surface, but it still hurt where it should. If Dao Ji wanted to hold her responsible, she should at least have her injuries examined, right? She could guarantee the efficacy of her medicine. There would be no problem no matter how she tested it. This time, she was determined to use her power to bully others, otherwise, she wouldn't be able to clear her name even if she had 10 mouths. Qi Zhong couldn't help but blush with shame. Don't worry, I'll handle this matter properly. But, the next time you see boss, can you not tell him? It would have been fine if the rumors had been anything else, but they had to say that Jing Yunjiao had seduced him. Li Xiaoyun's possessiveness, just thinking about it sent chills down his spine. Qi Zhong's face was full of anticipation. However, Jing Yunjiao recalled how he had deliberately caused trouble for her yesterday and suddenly smiled. Instructor Qi, I'm a person who separates public and private matters. I promise I won't tell Li Xiaoyun when he's working. But if we accidentally talk in private, you don't have to be afraid of him. He probably won't do anything to you because of such a small matter. Chapter 706. Since Qi Zhong was so afraid that she would tell Li Xiaoyun about it, it meant that if Li Xiaoyun knew about it, he would definitely give him a hard time. They were brothers, so nothing would go wrong even if they had a hard time. Therefore, Jing Yunjiao didn't mind adding to the fun between them. However, it had to be said that Jing Yunjiao missed Li Xiaoyun a little. When he was around, it was like having a mountain to rely on. Although he had a weird temper and was a little hypocritical, he was very caring and protective of her. He was also a very competent guardian. Qi Zhong was speechless, and he mourned for his future for a few seconds. She was indeed the woman that boss liked. When she did something, it was like thunder and the wind couldn't stop her. She had violently beaten up that Dao Ji. The matter was quite serious, but she knew in her heart that she had handled it very well. She had only hit the face and did not touch the other parts of the body at all. She had even applied medicine and destroyed the corpse after the beating. This matter could be either serious or trivial. After all, Dao Ji made a mistake by spreading rumors. She couldn't argue with the instructor for being unfair. In addition, with the ointment and him as the chief instructor, Jing Yunjiao could totally escape unscathed. That was why he found her scary. When she hit someone impulsively, she was thinking about how to get herself out of trouble. No one else was as smart as her. Moreover, as far as he knew, Jing Yunjiao was a talent that University A had spent a lot of effort to recruit. It wouldn't be easy to expel her. Even if University A could bear to lose her, Li Xiaoyun wouldn't allow it. Even if Jing Yunjiao was really expelled, her future wouldn't be affected and she could still live happily. There were countless ways to escape. No matter how arrogant she was now, she had the capital to back it up. She could only blame that girl for being too stupid to stir up trouble without any wind. She asked for it. Qi Zhong looked at Jing Yunjiao with a serious expression. Sister-in-law, you should have some good hemostatic ointment in your hands, right? Qi Zhong changed the topic and asked. Li Xiaoyun had a few bottles and gave them to the brothers. He was injured during a mission last time and his life was hanging by a thread. If it wasn't for the hemostatic ointment, even if he didn't die, their team would have been in a lot of trouble. Jing Yunjiao nodded. She wanted to say something about being called sister-in-law, but seeing Qi Zhong's serious expression, she held back. Can you provide it to the troops? Although it's a peaceful era now, there are still many wars and casualties in places where the people can't see. If your hemostatic ointment can be produced and provided, it can prevent a lot of casualties. Actually, Big Brother wanted to tell you about this before, but you were in Huaning County at that time. He still had to test the stability of the ointment, so he didn't say anything. Qi Zhong said very nervously. He had used the hemostatic ointment made by Jing Yunjiao, and it was very effective. However, he had also heard from Li Xiaoyun that Jing Yunjiao had many kinds of hemostatic ointments. The best one was the one he had used before. The prescription was extremely complicated and might not be suitable for mass production. However, even if it could not be mass-produced, he still hoped to buy as much as possible. After all, it could save many lives. That's the crossing life ointment. There are over 100 types of medicinal herbs, and the brewing method is also quite complicated. The crossing life ointment had a very special place in the elder ancestor's spirit jade. The elder ancestor was not from this world. The world he lived in was more mysterious. It was not an exaggeration to say that the pills he made could bring the dead back to life. However, after coming to this place, the medicinal herbs naturally did not have that kind of spiritual effect. However, the crossing life ointment could be said to be a hemostatic ointment that utilized the medicinal herbs to the extreme. It could be effective without using too much. Chapter 707. As soon as Jing Yunjiao said that it was complicated, Qi Zhong was a little disappointed. He knew that the possibility of this matter was not high. However, just as this disappointed expression appeared, Jing Yunjiao changed the topic and said, "This ointment can also be sold, but I have a condition." Qi Zhong's heart skipped a beat. "Say it. No matter what the condition is, we will do our best to fulfill it," he hurriedly said. He thought that this matter was impossible, but who knew that Jing Yunjiao would deliberately suppress it first and then raise it. The prescription of this ointment is indeed very complicated, but it is not impossible to mass-produce it. However, I hope that I can produce it and then provide it to the military. In other words, if I want to build a pharmaceutical factory, I will need the military's protection. Jing Yunjiao smiled. When she first started the company and built the factory, she liked the pharmaceutical factory the most. However, there were many rules and not everyone could build a pharmaceutical factory. It required all kinds of examinations and certificates. With her ability at that time, even if she really opened a pharmaceutical factory, no one would dare to buy the medicine. However, it was different now. Yuling Wine had earned her a lot of money. If she had the military's support, any problems could be easily solved. Sister-in-law, this kind of hemostatic ointment, the military will definitely want to keep it a secret. Qi Zhong hesitated. If Jing Yunjiao was unwilling to sell the ointment to the military, there was nothing they could do. However, at the same time, they would never allow her to mass-produce it and sell it to others. If other countries monopolized it, they would benefit. When that time came, Jing Yunjiao would be going against the military. There would be no end to it. If it was an ordinary hemostatic ointment, it would be fine. The problem was that the ointment in Jing Yunjiao's hand was different. I'm not stupid. Jing Yunjiao smiled lightly. This ointment is actually a gift to the military. Of course, the location of the factory to produce the douching ointment is also up to you guys to decide. I also won't care too much about the workers you recruit, I just need you to give me a name. To put it bluntly, I only hope that when my medical company is established, outsiders will know that I provide medicinal materials to the military and that I have your support. I don't care about anything else. Of course, I also have a lot of medicinal materials in my hands. I also hope that you can buy raw materials from me as much as possible so that I can at least make some profit, right? What she meant was very simple. She would build a factory herself, but the factory she built would not produce the douching ointment. The factory that produced the douching ointment would be funded by the military and placed under her name. The military would provide all the money, but she would not earn a single cent from it. She only wanted the reputation. The value of this ointment was not low, so this request was nothing. I'll keep the catalyst for this ointment for myself. After all, the fewer people who know about it, the better, Jing Yunjiao added. The guiding drug was not a rare thing, but without it, the efficacy of the crossing life ointment would be greatly reduced. However, if she told the military everything, her value would be reduced. She would not be able to do anything when the other party wanted to break up with her. Therefore, she had to ensure her own interests. Qi Zhong's eyes flashed with deep surprise. He did not expect Jing Yunjiao to be so comprehensive. Did you already know that I would ask you for the formula of the douching ointment? Qi Zhong could not help but ask. Jing Yunjiao pursed her lips and smiled. Not really. I gave the ointment to Li Xiaoyun because I knew that he and your brothers were related to the military. Since that is the case, it is inevitable that you will need something to stop bleeding, so I gave him a favor. On the one hand, I can let him take precautions. On the other hand, I also know that as long as you discover the use of this ointment, you will definitely have ideas about it. Chapter 708. She didn't study medicine because she wanted to be a miracle doctor and travel around to save people. She wouldn't be able to cure many people in that way even if she didn't stop for the rest of her life. However, it was different to open a pharmaceutical factory. It could save a lot of trouble and was more effective. For example, during some natural and man-made disasters, there was a huge demand for medicine. A doctor couldn't be compared to a pharmaceutical factory. After Jing Yunjiao's explanation, Qi Zhong nodded in understanding. However, he didn't feel strange in his heart. Jing Yunjiao was using the crossing life ointment as bait to catch these big fishes. Logically speaking, Big Boss should know very well. Thinking of this, the corner of Qi Zhong's mouth twitched. He suddenly understood. It was because Big Boss knew very well that he didn't say anything. Instead, it was his turn to discuss with Jing Yunjiao. They weren't even husband and wife yet, but they were already colluding with each other. If they really became a couple in the future, I'll raise your suggestion with the higher-ups. It's not a big request, so it shouldn't be a problem. However, if the crossing life ointment is in your hands, then you have to treat it seriously. When the time comes, the military will also sign a series of agreements with you. If the secret formula is leaked, you will have to bear a lot of responsibility, Qi Zhong reminded her. Although it was a reminder, it was also a bit of a scare. Jing Yunjiao wasn't scared. Everything had its benefits and risks. She was very tight-lipped about keeping it a secret. Moreover, the so-called formula was hidden in her brain. How could it be leaked so easily? Jing Yunjiao immediately nodded and said, anyway, the military will also build a factory to produce the crossing life ointment. It shouldn't be difficult for you to get all kinds of documents for me, right? Of course, it would be best if you could also help me choose the location of the factory. The two factories can't be too far apart. Otherwise, outsiders will find it strange, right? You're really... Qi Zhong pointed at Jing Yunjiao and put down his hand helplessly. You're really taking advantage of me openly. This isn't taking advantage of you. It's just a transaction of equal value. After all, don't forget that the factory for the Crossing Life ointment has to be the same as the factory under my name. If the documents aren't complete, how can it be qualified to produce it? The military can't break the law knowingly, right? Jing Yunjiao chuckled, but there was a hint of arrogance in his voice. Qi Zhong sighed. All right, I got it. I will deal with this matter as soon as possible. However, do you have enough funds on you? If you don't, I will ask the military to come forward and get a loan for you. In addition, when the factory director of the Crossing Life ointment is chosen, he should be able to meet you. Don't worry about money. I don't like to lose money. After Jing Yunjiao finished speaking, he smiled politely and turned to leave. However, after taking 2 steps, he stopped and asked, if I ask the military to get rid of Dao Ji, can you do it too? Qi Zhong's gaze was deep. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to make the military mobilize so many people for such a small matter. However, I believe that if this is the condition, you will do it. After all, it's for the country, the family, and the people. Jing Yunjiao's smile was a little cold. She knew very well what Qi Zhong's words meant. She could not sell the ointment, but once she sold it to people who were against the military, her life would be in danger. However, although she felt a little scared, she did not think there was anything wrong with it. The military's position was to protect the country. Kind and soft-hearted people were not harmful to the country. Everyone had their own position. It would be too one-sided to say that it was right or wrong. Chapter 709. Jing Yunjiao and Qi Zhong chatted for a while. They purposely avoided their classmates, so no one could hear what they were saying. However, when they saw Qi Zhong's serious expression from afar, they subconsciously assumed that Qi Zhong had something bad to say. When Jing Yunjiao and Hua Tianxian met, their faces were filled with concern. Jing Yunjiao, what did that big guy say about you? Is he going to report you to the school and expel you? Hua Tianxian frowned. They hadn't known each other for long, but the 4 of them got along well, especially Jing Yunjiao. She felt that he was special and treated him as a friend. No. This is the base. The instructor has the final say in everything. Even if he wants to punish me, he will use the military training method. It has nothing to do with the school, Jing Yunjiao said. So he's fine then? Yarrow Baobao was surprised. She had gone with Hua Tianxian to call Instructor Qi, so it was a pity that she didn't get to see Jing Yunjiao beat someone up. However, according to Ren Xingyue, it was extremely brutal. That shadowless hand only made pa sounds, and in the blink of an eye, that person's face had turned into a pig's head. The students from the 2 classes were all thinking that Jing Yunjiao was done for, but in the end, he was fine. You don't have to comfort us. I can see the seriousness of the situation. Jing Yunjiao, school has just started, so it's not too late. If worst comes to worst, I'll find someone to let you go to another school after you drop out. Oh right, how are your college entrance exams? If your grades are good, it'll be fine. Hua Tianxian was very direct. Don't worry, I'm fine. But do you want to come with me to see Dao Ji? Jing Yunjiao asked. The 3 of them were stunned. Are you really fine? They confirmed again. Jing Yunjiao immediately nodded. Only then did the 3 of them heave a sigh of relief. Celestial Immortal Hua's lips curled up in a smile. Little guy, you're quite capable. Not only did you manage to vent your anger, but you also managed to escape unscathed. Jing Yunjiao chuckled. The students of A07 had just finished running a few laps and were able to take a break. On the other hand, the people of A08 who were spreading rumors were standing at attention under the scorching sun. Jing Yunjiao and the 3 of them went to the infirmary. When they opened the door, they saw the doctor frowning and fiddling with a rag, mumbling to himself. This doctor was a military doctor who was specially transferred to take care of the student's health. "Doctor, how is she? You won't die, right?" Hu Tianxian said venomously. Dao Ji was still on the bed, covered by the curtain. It looked like she hadn't woken up yet. "You're here. Just in time. I have something to ask. Who applied the medicine on the cloth?" The doctor quickly asked. The smell of the medicine was very fragrant and special. It should have the effect of removing bruises and reducing swelling. However, the effect seemed to be too good. The students who brought the girl here clearly said that her face was bruised and swollen, but when the cloth was lifted, they saw a perfectly normal face. There were some marks on her face, but they were just red marks. They would disappear in a short while. It wasn't as serious as the students said. However, the students didn't look like they were lying. So, after thinking about it, it should be the effect of the medicine. "I applied it," Jing Yunjiao said. "You? Where did you buy this medicine? What brand is it?" The doctor asked again. "It's a secret family recipe. I'm sorry, but I can't tell you," Jing Yunjiao replied politely. The doctor was a little disappointed. "This medicine is very magical. I hope your family can pass it down. Right, since you're here now, you can bring the girl back when she wakes up. It's not a big deal. There are no external or internal injuries. She's fine." Chapter 710. As soon as the doctor spoke, Hu Tianxian raised her eyebrows and glanced at Ren Xingyue. "Didn't you just say that she was badly beaten?" Ren Xingyue shook her head innocently. It was indeed very serious. There were 2 lines of blood dripping from her nose. Even now, there were still bloodstains on the training ground. Jing Yunjiao wasn't surprised, while the 3 of them pulled open the curtains in a daze, only to see Dao Pigeon lying on the bed. Other than her face being abnormally red, there weren't any wounds on her body. Ren Xingyue was even more shocked. After all, she had seen Dao Ji's miserable state with her own eyes. How could she have recovered in such a short period of time? "Jing Yunjiao, didn't I just stick a piece of cloth on her face?" "There's medicine on it," Jing Yunjiao explained simply. Ren Xingyue was even more surprised now that he had explained. What kind of medicine could have such an amazing effect? She had recovered in such a short period of time. No wonder the doctor said those words when they entered the room. As they walked through the curtain, Hu Tianxian pulled the curtain up again. She glanced at Dao Ji, who was lying on the bed, and snorted. She poked her face and said, "I hate this face." As she spoke, she reached out and pinched it hard. Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched. She had beaten Dao Ji up openly when she was awake. However, Hu Tianxian's reaction was petty. It was both infuriating and amusing. Jing Yunjiao did not say much. She reached out and pressed a few acupuncture points on Dao Ji's body. Just as Hu Tianxian and the others were wondering what Jing Yunjiao was doing, Dao Ji's eyelids moved twice. She's awake, Yarrow Baobao said excitedly. 4 pairs of eyes on both sides of the bed immediately looked over. Dao Ji slowly opened her eyes. She felt a burst of pain coming from her cheeks. She felt as if her teeth were about to fall out. It was extremely uncomfortable. Jing Yunjiao dared to treat her like this. This time, she must make the school expel her. So what if he was the top scholar? So what if you have high scores? This was a new school, so she couldn't be allowed to mess around. Resisting the dizziness, Dao Ji's eyes finally saw the surrounding situation. "Ah!" She was startled and screamed. He nearly leapt out of his bed, and his body shrank back violently. "It's the 4 of you. What do you want?" "Jing Yunjiao, don't think that I'm afraid of you. The school won't let you off for beating me up like this. They'll definitely expel you." "Really? I don't think so." Jing Yunjiao snorted softly. He lifted his foot and threw the small mirror over from the doctor's table. "Take a good look at yourself. What the hell do you look like? You ruined my reputation, and all I did was touch you a few times. Who would punish me? Even if they want to punish me, it doesn't have anything to do with the school. In this military training base, I have the courage to bear all the consequences. Can you? Daring to do something but not daring to admit it. A few slaps to teach her a lesson for speaking nonsense about others was already a light punishment. Dao Ji held the mirror with a confused expression. However, when her eyes met, she was instantly stunned. Her face wasn't considered pretty, and there were some freckles on it. Naturally, she couldn't compare to Jing Yunjiao, who was praised as a beauty by everyone. Because of this, every time she saw Jing Yunjiao, she would involuntarily feel inferior. She couldn't help but loathe Jing Yunjiao to the extreme. However, it was reasonable to say that she shouldn't be in her original state. She could already feel the tearing pain on her face, and the waves of numbness still didn't stop. How could she look unscathed? Chapter 7:11. Dao Ji kept looking left and right at this face. When she touched it gently with her hand, she immediately grimaced in pain. She was completely stunned. It's not like that, Jing Yunjiao. You clearly hit my face very hard. I want to see the injury. Dao Ji shouted. The doctor is outside. He's a military doctor. He already said that you have no internal or external injuries. You're very good. Jing Yunjiao's voice was cold. Dao Ji, I've already given you many chances, haven't I? I didn't say anything when you used my name to talk to others on the train. If it weren't for your poisonous mouth that almost caused me to take the blame for you, I wouldn't have appeared in front of you. I would have let you satisfy your vanity and pretend to be Jing Yunjiao. It's true that I exposed you, but you made a mistake. I didn't reprimand you, and I didn't mock you in public. What right do you have to be dissatisfied? Also, it was a coincidence that Hu Tianxian threw things at you when you entered the school. I didn't even know that the person she almost hit was you, but you insisted on blaming it on me. Rather than saying that you misunderstood me, it's better to say that you deliberately wanted me to be the heinous person in your heart who can't be compared to you, right? You're so vain and selfish. What's a few slaps? She knew in her heart that Dao Ji was targeting her because they both came from Huaning County. They both came from Huaning County and went to a university. She was the top scholar and she saved the old man on the train. Dao Ji was the opposite. When she arrived at a university, she stayed in a 4-person room. Although it wasn't that expensive, her roommates were rich girls like Hu Tianxian and Yarrow Baobao, who casually threw things that cost tens of thousands. Dao Ji was even more dissatisfied and jealous because of this. But in reality, it was Dao Ji who was stubborn. Especially after knowing that she was an orphan, the imbalance in her heart became even stronger. But it wasn't the environment that forced Dao Ji to be so unreasonable. It was her own ignorance. Jing Yunjiao, no matter what you say, I won't forgive you. You're saying all this to me on purpose. Don't you want me to plead for you with the instructor? Impossible. Let me tell you, if there's you, there's no me. Previously on the train, you were clearly sitting beside me, but you didn't say anything. Weren't you just waiting to see me make a fool of myself? You make it sound as if you didn't want to argue with me on purpose. If you really didn't want to argue with me, you wouldn't have appeared at all in the end, right? Dao Ji's eyes were filled with rage. Jing Yunjiao sneered. In the beginning, she had pretended to be a small matter. She had only talked to 2 or 3 strangers. Even if she had said something wrong, it would not have been a big deal. But later on, the whole carriage was in a mess. The old man was so angry that he fainted. How could she continue to tolerate it? What an insatiable person who doesn't know how to reflect on himself. Looks like you haven't learned your lesson. Jing Yunjiao bent down and reached out to pinch her neck. He exerted a little force and Dao Ji's face immediately turned red. I don't need you to plead for me. I'm just saying all this to see if you can admit your mistakes and change. But it looks like you're still not sensible. Jing Yunjiao's face was dark and ruthless. Dao Ji, I'm afraid you don't know me, right? You're from Huaning County. Why don't you find someone to find out if I, Jing Yunjiao, I'm the type to suffer losses first. Things don't happen more than 3 times. My patience is running out. Now that we're at the base, I won't do anything to you. But I can make you suffer a little. If you don't believe me, you can try. With that, he released his grip and flung her away. Dao Ji coughed a few times hurriedly and covered her neck. Her eyes were filled with fear. She could feel that Jing Yunjiao really wanted to strangle her to death just now. Chapter 7:12. Not to mention Dao Ji, even Hua Tianxian and the other 2 were shocked by Jing Yunjiao. The doctor outside heard the commotion and quickly came in to take a look. Seeing that Dao Ji was still fine, he let out a sigh of relief. You little girls have quite a temper. All right, take her away. The doctor waved his hand and shook his head. It was just a group of children. Moreover, the instructor outside would definitely pay attention and not let them cause any more trouble. Jing Yunjiao looked at Dao Ji coldly. The corner of his mouth curled up and he reached out to grab Dao Ji's wrist. Did you hear that? Let's go. I don't want to. Go away. Dao Ji was shocked and immediately wanted to shake off his hand. However, her wrist was tightly clamped by Jing Yunjiao and she couldn't let go. Moreover, when she struggled, she could clearly feel that Jing Yunjiao's grip was stronger. It was as if he was going to crush her bones, causing her extreme pain. He practically dragged and pulled her up from the hospital bed. Dao Ji hurriedly cried for help. However, the doctor saw that Jing Yunjiao didn't do anything excessive and thought that Dao Ji was being unreasonable. He couldn't be bothered to care. After leaving the infirmary, Jing Yunjiao finally let go of her hand. Dao Ji was shocked. Once she was free, she quickly ran a few steps forward. Her eyes were filled with panic. I'll go find the instructor. Let's see how he'll deal with you. She didn't believe Jing Yunjiao. How could he beat her and not be punished? As you wish. Jing Yunjiao looked at her with disdain. Dao Ji's body and mind were both shocked. She rubbed her wrists and covered her neck in panic. She had clearly escaped from Jing Yunjiao's evil clutches, but she still felt cold behind her. The sky was blazing hot, but there was also a chill that went from her feet to her heart. You gave her quite a scare just now. Hua Tianxian touched her clean fingernails with a smile on her face. I wasn't scaring her. Jing Yunjiao's voice was cold. She hated it when people spread rumors about her. Dao Ji had crossed her bottom line. It was impossible for her to have a smooth life in the future. Hua Tianxian heard this and said, Jing Yunjiao, I think that big guy Qi Zhong really treats you differently. He was willing to take on such a big matter for you. Are you two really not close? Jing Yunjiao shook his head. Qi Zhong helped her because of Li Xiaoyun. Even if it wasn't for Li Xiaoyun, it was because of the ointment in her hands. Xingyue, I remember that you know Jumai Jun from Class A08, Jing Yunjiao suddenly asked. At that time, she was angry and aggressively looking for trouble with Dao Ji. At that time, Jumai Jun was standing beside Dao Ji. At that time, Ren Xingyue seemed unwilling to get close and walked at the back. Later, when Jumai Jun talked to Ren Xingyue, her expression was very unnatural. Jumai Jun is my aunt's daughter. We have always lived under the same roof. On the surface, we seem to have a good relationship, but in reality, we are like fire and water, Ren Xingyue said. No wonder. At that time, I felt that Jumai Jun was strange when she spoke, Yarrow Baobao also said. Jing Yunjiao revealed a look of understanding. As a person, she still had some feelings of hostility towards others. She clearly felt that Jumai Jun seemed to have some disgust towards her at that time. She and Jumai Jun had never known each other before. Logically speaking, even if Jumai Jun stood up for Dao Ji, she shouldn't have felt so empathetic. It turned out that her hostility was directed towards Ren Xingyue. And because she was close to Ren Xingyue, she was implicated. Chapter 7:13. Jing Yunjiao didn't think much of it, and the 4 of them returned to the team. The students of Class A08 were no longer standing in a military stance, but they were doing other more intense training. The military training in University A was different from other schools. It wasn't as simple as walking in a military stance and training discipline. It was mainly to strengthen the body. Many students could lose a few kilograms after staying here for half a month. If they continued like this, it was possible to build a body of muscle. The students all complained bitterly, especially the girls from the next class. They blamed Jing Yunjiao in their hearts when they saw her. Because of Jing Yunjiao, the instructor in their class was removed and replaced by Qi Zhong, a man who didn't have a tender heart for the fairer sex. He even punished them for gossiping, causing the girls to undergo the same intense training as the boys. He was too cruel. Jing Yunjiao was magnanimous. Although it was because of her, these students deserved it. She didn't stop or object to normal gossip, but these people knew that something was wrong. They even knew that Dao Ji had no evidence, but they still talked nonsense. They were Dao Ji's accomplices, so it was only right that they were punished. Instructor, why are you punishing me and not Jing Yunjiao? She was the one who did something wrong. Dao Ji looked at Jing Yunjiao in fear and said angrily. She had come to look for the instructor, full of expectations. Who knew that after the instructor took one look at her face, he would assume that she was the one who had done something wrong. He told her to start the frog jump training. Until now, she couldn't even lift her legs. You mean that if you punish me, you'll admit it willingly? Jing Yunjiao said coldly. Anyway, I only know that the instructor is biased and is protecting you on purpose. When we get back to school, we'll definitely report it to the school, Dao Ji said. Jing Yunjiao sneered. Up to you. But seeing how lively you are, why don't we make a bet? What do you mean? Dao Ji's heart skipped a beat. A bet? You're not convinced, right? Then let's make a bet. When the time comes, who will admit defeat? Are you willing? If you don't dare, then don't talk so much, Jing Yunjiao said coldly. Dao Ji secretly gritted her teeth. Her brows were tightly knitted, and her eyes seemed to be about to pop out of their sockets. Tell me, what do you want to bet on? Dao Ji also lost her temper. Didn't you just say that I hit you? I'll give you a chance to call me back. Jing Yunjiao chuckled. He looked at Qi Zhong and said, Instructor Qi, if I remember wrongly, the military training in a university includes combat, right? That's right. Qi Zhong nodded. Due to the short duration of the military training, most of them had only learned a few simple moves, not even the slightest bit of it. Perhaps it might have been useful during the military training, but after the military training, it would not take long for them to forget all the moves. Jing Yunjiao smiled. Then let's have a duel. I'll give you a chance to learn. When the military training is about to end, we'll have a competition. At that time, no matter who gets beaten up, you can't talk nonsense or show any dissatisfaction. Do you dare? Even if Dao Ji studied for a year, it was impossible for him to beat her. Although she was a little despicable, looking at her face, she had the urge to continue beating her. She had said that even if Instructor Qi was not here, she would still make her life here miserable. She meant what she said. Hearing this, Dao Ji hesitated. She had never come into contact with combat. When she was in school, she had fought with others, but it was just pulling their hair. However, at this time, there were so many people watching. If she did not accept, it would be too embarrassing. While Dao Ji was hesitating, Ju Maijun walked over from the crowd and whispered a few words in her ear. Dao Ji's eyes immediately lit up. She immediately said, Okay, let's have a bet. If you lose, you'll drop out when you go back. Chapter 7:14. Jing Yunjiao heard everything clearly. What Ju Maijun said was very simple. She just told Dao Ji that there was a boy in her class who knew how to fight and could help her. Dao Ji didn't want to disappoint her vanity now that she had someone to rely on. Drop out. Okay. What if you lose? Jing Yunjiao frowned and said coldly. Dao Ji was stunned. What if she lost? Drop out. No. It wasn't easy for her to get into University A. She didn't want to drop out. I'm also not asking you to drop out of school. I just want you to stand in front of all the students when the military training ends. In front of everyone, you have to admit that you've done something wrong. Furthermore, you have to promise that you'll avoid me like the plague when you see me in a university. Wherever I, Jing Yunjiao, go, you'll obediently take a detour. If you go against me again, you'll never be able to make a name for yourself in this lifetime. How about it? However, compared to her future, her condition was simple. As long as Dao Ji accepted it, she would never be able to make a name for herself in the future. Dao Ji was vain. Otherwise, she wouldn't have pretended to be her. If she made a promise in front of everyone after she lost, she would be in a lot of trouble in the next few years in University A. Okay. Dao Ji gritted her teeth. She didn't believe that she would definitely lose. Jing Yunjiao's strength was a bit higher, but there were also people in her class who had learned fighting techniques. When the time came, the instructor would teach in front of everyone. If he was biased in private, then this competition wouldn't even count. Therefore, she wasn't afraid. Since we're betting, then everyone from 07 and 08 should participate as well. Your classes have the same number of people. When the time comes, we'll take turns to fight. Jing Yunjiao and Dao Ji will take the lead. The class with the most people left in the end will be the winner. The winning class will receive a special reward, Qizhong said. Once he said that, the students were in an uproar. The students in the two classes had already met. Now that they were going to fight, they were all excited. Zhu Maijun and the others, in particular, were full of confidence. They had a trump card in their class. How could the newbie in Jing Yunjiao's class win? There were still more than 10 days before the competition, and everyone had already begun to fantasize. However, Qizhong did not give them too much time to imagine. A new round of training began. At the end of the day, everyone was exhausted. At night, almost as soon as they returned to the dormitory, each and every one of them collapsed onto their beds and slept soundly. After being reprimanded by Qizhong, Yarrow Baobao was afraid that her bed would not pass the test the next day. She pestered Jing Yunjiao to teach her how to tidy up the house. However, her clumsy teaching was still useless. In the end, the three of them worked together for a few hours. By the time the lights were turned off, they were finally able to get the job done. The base was very quiet at night. Not a single sound could be heard. The next day, Dao Ji arrived at the training ground early and was surrounded by many students. One of the boys stood in the middle and taught Dao Ji basic knowledge seriously. The instructors would also teach these fighting techniques. However, no matter how much they taught, it would still depend on the student's ability to absorb it. More importantly, it would still require frequent training. There's a martial artist in their class. Hu Tianxian frowned. Even the other students were a little worried. How about it? You have to admit defeat as soon as possible. Otherwise, when the time comes, you'll be beaten up. Zhu Maijun said arrogantly. Don't worry. I'm here. Jing Yunjiao smiled and looked confident. The hole she dug for Dao Ji and the others would definitely not bury her. If she couldn't even handle these students, then her years of training in the space would have been in vain. Chapter 7:15. Jing Yunjiao's confident look made Hu Tianxian feel even more strange. She even felt that there was a hint of cunning in her eyes. The three of them had seen Jing Yunjiao make a move before. She used 4 tails to lift 1,000 jin and threw a big boy to the ground. However, other than that, they didn't see any other impressive moves. Moreover, even though they had agreed to show it to Ren Xingyu, because of the military training, the things they wanted to do before were all delayed. Moreover, fighting and fighting were two different things in their eyes. Acrobatics looked amazing, but if used in a fight, there was no chance of winning. What's more, Jing Yunjiao was a girl after all. Even if she knew some fighting techniques, she would still have a hard time if she met a guy from a martial arts school. What's more, there were more guys in class 08 compared to her class. In this aspect, they were at a disadvantage. Forget it, I'll believe you for now. Anyway, you're the first one to fight, so beating Dao Ge shouldn't be a problem. Help our class hold on a few more times and have a higher chance of winning. Even if we lose, we can't lose too badly. Hua Tianxian patted Jing Yunzhao's shoulder. Jing Yunzhao shook her head speechlessly. Was she that untrustworthy? However, before the competition, she would never reveal her true strength. Otherwise, if she scared the other party and caused them to forfeit, then how could she fulfill her wish of beating up those who talked bad about her? She remembered clearly which of the female students in the class next door were just curious and talking casually, and which of them were deliberately looking for trouble and mocking her. Currently, the two classes were training together, but they were like fire and water. They wanted to be first in every aspect. Jing Yunzhao was Class A07's class monitor. She led the team, and whether it was her military posture or other aspects, she was completely up to standard. Qi Zhong didn't even reprimand her. On the other hand, Class A08's class monitor was a guy. After several comparisons, the students in Class A08 suggested that Zhu Maijun be the class monitor. After all, it was easier to compare the two female class monitors. Qi Zhong was very responsible in his work, and he allocated his time appropriately. With him teaching the fighting techniques, the students learned very quickly. After 10 days, they were already starting to take shape. Today is the shooting test. I'm so excited, Yarrow Baobao said with a dark face. They were all empty cartridges, and they had only been learning for 2 days. In fact, they had spent most of their time practicing holding the gun and lying down while holding the gun. The number of times they had actually shot could be counted on one hand. However, compared to other types of training, light weapons were the most attractive to the students. Baby Yarrow smiled, revealing his white teeth. After a period of time, almost all of the students had become a little darker. There were even some calluses on their hands and they looked dusty. However, in comparison, Yarrow Baobao was the most different from before. She could fold blankets and wash clothes. Her clumsy appearance had finally improved. As for Hua Tianxian, the one who did not change the least was her. Every day when she had time, she would look at herself in the mirror for a long time. Whenever she saw her darkened skin, she would pull a long face. When she saw Qi Zhong, there were more whites in her eyes than black. Not only did she disdain him, she would also complain about him in private every day. Jing Yunzhao, what's wrong with your skin? It was like this when you came here, and it hasn't changed at all. Could it be that the sun only shines on us and not you? Hua Tianxian said as she poked Jing Yunzhao's face. If it wasn't for the white and tender skin she poked, she would have suspected that it was fake. Jing Yunzhao smiled. After the military training ends, I'll give you a secret whitening recipe. Really? You're not lying? Hua Tianxian said with a serious face. Yes. Jing Yunzhao nodded. Hua Tianxian shook her head and snorted. I don't believe other people's words, but you're different. But then again, if you lose to Zhu Maijun from the 8th class in shooting today, don't blame me for ignoring you. The strength of the two class monitors represented the honor of the class. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.